Welcome back, everybody, to Late Night at the Movies on the Late Night Chat Network, your first stop for pop culture talk, episode 53, Manhunter. All right, welcome back, everybody, to Late Night at the Movies. As I mentioned, this is episode 53, and we're joined here today by our co-hosts. Of course, Max is in the house.
What's up?
And JT, actually not here in person with us today, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I don't know. What do you think, Max?
We can just cut him out. We could end him out of the thing.
I'm ready in the barrel, buddy. I'm ready to fire.
He's always here.
But of course, as I mentioned, this pick is Manhunter here today, the Michael Mann film, and this was Max's pick.
Yes,
I do want to quickly mention Julie once again is not here with us today. She's actually being chased by police right now through the woods for her own Manhunter type of murder.
She's casing her next victim's house, right? She's on a lunar cycle, right?
That's right. She's planning out her next murder right now.
Yeah, the next lunar moon is on the 14th.
Yeah. Oh shit!
There you go. There you
getting
go.
Prepped, you know.
So, but
it takes a lot of hard work, bro, to case someone to do this.
She's chilling somewhere on a piece of driftwood on a beach.
Stapling a fence,
contemplating life. No, she'll actually be with us next episode. But stay tuned.
To a volleyball.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Stay tuned. We will be mentioning what her pick is at the end of this episode. So stay tuned for that. We'll be mentioning what the next movie will be for her return. She did throw out a pick, and even though she wasn't able to make it here today, but go ahead, Max, take it away.
Yeah. So this is my pick, Manhunter, directed by Michael Mann. And I guess I should just start off why I picked it and the history of it and stuff like that. So story time, kids, as always, right? Gather around. So I saw this movie for the first time 10 years ago, and I know it was 10 years ago because so around this time I was doing this thing, and I think JT, you mentioned that your nephew is doing this now, where he's picking a director or an actor and going through their kind of their history, their filmography, right? I was doing that when I was 18, 19 years old. I was just random filmmakers. If someone was coming out with a movie, I would pick that filmmaker and just from chronological order, from top to bottom, go through their whole thing. And Michael Mann at the time was coming out with Black Hat, January 2015. That was when that movie came out. And so I picked Michael Mann, and I was kind of going through his stuff. And I'd already seen a few of his films, some that I didn't know were his, some that I did know were his. But then there were other movies, all his 80s stuff, or all this stuff basically up until Heat. I didn't know that was I'd never even heard of those movies. I'm talking Thief, Manhunter he made after Thief, and The Keep and stuff like that. And so I watched his movies, and I liked some of them, and some of them more than others. And Manhunter was a movie I liked, but I wasn't it wasn't oh, this is it didn't floor me when I saw it, but I liked it, right? I liked it not as much as I think I preferred Thief much more. I think I got something more out of Thief the first time I saw it. Have you seen that one, JT, by the way? Thief? I know Nico has. So yeah, right. So I watched Manhunter, then I watched all his other movies. Michael Mann, great filmmaker. And then I actually saw this movie Manhunter in theaters. They were playing it at the, what was that theater? Was it the Royal, the one on Bathurst and College or whatever? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Or there was a theater.
College.
The Royal.
I just I was there the other. I was there for.
Is that
some
still like? Are they still running? Are they still doing their
Yeah,
thing?
it's a
'Cause-
theater, but it was a performance. They were doing like acrobat, like performance. There's a screen there and everything, so I'm pretty sure they
oh,
would
this was a
still be.
movie theater. You could watch movies in. I don't
Yeah,
know if they do that anymore now. It's
but
like
it's like an old school movie theater, right?
yeah, an
Yeah,
old school independent chain. Yeah,
and
and
they
I
have a
saw it.
stage too on the in the front too. They have the whole stage and everything. It's crazy.
Yeah, so like one of my friends told me like, yo, they're playing Manhunter. Like he knows that I like Michael Mann, and
Oh,
it
so
was
it's probably like a revival theater, like one of these ones
they
that
sometimes
plays
they
like
play
older
old
films.
movies, they
Yeah,
play
yeah,
older
yeah.
movies, but they play new ones too.
It's like the
50
Fox and stuff
yeah,
like that.
or
Yeah,
the Review.
yeah,
in
yeah,
Broad
yeah,
City.
yeah.
So it's like movies
Those are
like
all like ones where they play older films for people that like
exactly.
yeah.
So one summer they played. They had like a program. They're doing like Neon Dreams, I think it was called. And one time they played. One summer they played Manhunter, and then the next summer they played Thief. And I went to actually both.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I saw them both in theaters, which
Nice.
was a good experience.
Nice.
Manhunter. And then I saw it. So that was the second or third time I watched Manhunter. I might have seen it like 3 or 4 times. Like, but then, and I always had the same. I like Michael Mann's films, and I'll get into this like more into detail later. But he's someone who's I feel like his films age very well for me. As far as like I appreciate something more out of them, the more I watch them, and the more I like. He has a very interesting quality about his movies. It's like uh, sometimes I won't love them right away, but then I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. And what influenced me to go back and watch this Manhunter like in relative recent times, because before this I probably hadn't seen Manhunter in like 5, maybe it was that summer, it was like 5-6 years ago, maybe longer. Was So Tarantino was on Joe Rogan, not the one with Roger Avery, but the first time he went on by himself. And I rewatched it like back in December, like 3 months ago. I rewatched that episode, and there was a segment where he was talking about he has this whole thing about like 80s movies suck. I know you probably heard that like opinion of his. And I have like a theory as to like why he says that, but that's neither here nor there. But he was talking about he wanted to write a book about uh all the 80s movies that he had seen that he actually liked, like the ones that actually stood out to him. And Manhunter was one of those movies that he mentioned on Joe Rogan.
He cited that during the conversation?
Yeah, he cited that during the
I've seen that interview. I can't remember.
Go back and watch that part. No, he did. And it was like the idea for the book is really interesting. He was
I can't believe that.
Yeah, because
sure.
I haven't.
Well, he was a big fan of The Keep as well, which was the other Michael Mann movie I know that's it. That's a deep cut where people don't even think of it as a Michael Mann
That's
film.
like a trashy movie that like there's
but
something
he
to it.
That kind of stuff. Like
yeah. Maybe I need to revisit that one too, because I've only seen it one time.
That was made before this, just before.
Was it?
Yeah, that was 83.
Oh, it was 80. Okay, yeah. So
because this came out when
86, I believe. So okay.
So he did Thief, The Keep, then this.
Okay, good. Okay. So then Tarantino was talking about how he like I haven't read Cinema Speculation, but you have. I think that's the 70s.
Started it. I haven't.
Is that's movies about the 70s he's talking about? So he was before Cinema Speculation even came out, because he was promoting the book version of Once Upon a Time of Hollywood for Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
So that was when that summer, when that book came out, when he did that podcast, and he was talking about how he wanted to do a book about his time as a when he worked at that video store, and the movies in the 80s. That's like he would pick like 15 to 20 movies from the 80s that he would like
video archives
that he really loved from the 80s that he would like write a book about. And Manhunter was like, man, that was like my movie. So I was like, oh shit. When I saw that, I rewatched that recently. I was like, oh shit, like I haven't seen Manhunter in a long ass time. Let me go back and like watch this movie. Let me just see something new. And I was like, whoa, I loved it so much more. Like I just watched it and I was like, whoa, I get it now. I'm like, maybe I had to like grow up a little bit, because I was like 19, 20, 21 watching that, and now I'm like 29. So I'm like looking at it like from a new lens, kind of like as a little bit older. And I'm just like, whoa, this is like really, really good. So I knew like December when I saw that, I was like, okay, I have to pick this for my next pick. And then months kind of went by, and now we're in March, and I was thinking, okay, should I still go with Manhunter? And then I was like, let's do it. Let's do Manhunter. Let's run it. So that's really the reason why. It's like this is like a thing, and I have the similar history with other Michael Mann's movies, like Heat, for example, where I watch it and I like it, and then maybe like a couple years go by and I go, whoa, like this is. And I think the reason why this happened for me, particularly with not just Manhunter but his other films, is because I think there's like a quality in his movies. They're about kind of like older people who have kind of like had like a lot of experience, people who have had kind of been beaten by time a little
Time
bit.
is luck.
Time is luck. Yeah, what does he say? The juice is the
Oh, for
heat
me,
is
the action is the juice. That's from Key. No,
That's
Time is Luck is said in this movie, and
Yeah.
it's said in 3 of his movies.
Yeah.
Three of them.
He's like obsessed with
Miami Vice, this, and Heat.
Exactly. Yeah. And so
He's obsessed with, like, it feels like people being opportunistic at a certain point in their, like, seizing opportunities that are in front of them, like acting quick on. And I think that's the only thing that makes sense to me about that. Like, I don't know, it's kind of confusing. Like some of the Michael Mann is like language in films, like the messaging that he's trying to, like, you know,
even I think Thief is the similar one. Like, I have no time. Remember, because he was in jail.
It's always about time.
It's always about time with him. Yeah. So he's like also like Christopher Nolan, very obsessed with time as well. You know.
Yes. But he literally says the lines of time in his films.
Yeah, they're like more about like a real version of time, not like a sci-fi kind of version of it. But the thing with his movies, I feel like the main characters, it's like they're very similar to one another. And even though Will Graham, the main character of this story, is maybe a bit younger than his other protagonist, younger than Enzo Ferrari, younger than Neil Macaulay, like De Niro's character, younger than all these, he still has had like he's recovering from a very traumatic episode that he had that happened before the start of the film.
Yeah.
And so he's like dealing with that, and he's kind of like coming to reels with that. And I always feel like that's sort of like a running theme in his movies. It's like, it's almost like the best years is kind of behind you, kind of a little bit, or like your biggest challenges are kind of behind you. And then when you least expect it, you're faced with this new kind of challenge. I see that like a running kind of theme in a lot of his movies, like the new, how we deal with new conflicts as we get older and we progress through life and stuff. And I just like, I like, that's why I think like at 19 it was cool. I like the actiony kind of parts of it, but now at 29 I'm like, okay, I like the themes that's going, like the subject matter.
You're looking at it differently, different aspects of the film, and appreciating it in different ways, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what did you guys think of the movie?
Jay, you go ahead, because I believe this is Jay's first time ever watching this movie, right? I just watched this for the first time, I think a year ago, after I feel like we were probably talking about it at the time. I think you had said you should check that one out. But go ahead, Jay. How about you?
I found it very interesting. I'm into this kind of twisted little bit of, so I know the whole Hannibal Lecter story and this and that, but this is kind of, goes a little different than that. I found it interesting. I found that I had to watch it a couple times to just understand it a little bit better than, I wanted to know where I thought, how it sits and how it plays out too as well. So Nico kind of gave me some heads up on it before I watched it, just because I was having just sometimes it's hard to get started on a movie, especially with anything. With anything, sometimes for me especially, to get started on a movie, if I don't find it interesting within the first like 10 minutes, it's kind of hard for me to. But I stuck with it, and it really kind of threw me for a ride, which made me start thinking about other things that it could relate to and stuff like that. So we'll get to more into, like, other than that, it was the only first time I've ever seen it. This time I never even knew that this film existed, to be honest. I know of, other stuff that's almost the same name and stuff like that, but I've never even seen this in this view, I would say, of a character, right? I was expecting maybe a little bit more when we were talking about it at first, but I think I got what I needed to from this, right? So it was a good film. I think it was a little bit under budget, or I don't know, man. Low budget film.
Can I say one thing? One thing that really, really like struck me, and this is probably something I've kind of like appreciated more now than I would have, is that like I kind of like, I'm really like kind of like a geek about like art kind of. This is a very beautiful looking movie.
It's an artsy film.
It's very beautiful, like the coloring and the composition of the shots, how like the lines, how he stages the furniture, the chairs, and everything.
It's a very dreamlike film.
It's so beautiful to look at.
Ethereal, like it's very, like, honestly, like yeah, revisiting it again, you start to look at the way he's like, this is a beautifully shot movie,
Absolutely.
honestly. And even like the effects that he adds to the film throughout, like there's a lot of like, from everything from lighting to like even the first scenes when you kind of get that sunrise, the red versus the blue as they're like lying in the bed.
Oh, I love that
right?
shot, that deep blue. It's so good.
But I think you have to kind of watch it a couple of times to kind of start to appreciate that stuff.
He uses color to tell a
Yes,
story in a
yes.
very interesting way.
Sunset and all that and stuff like that.
Very visual movie.
I learned one thing I know for sure about this movie, that you can save turtles and make them get to the
yeah.
So just remember that. But
save the turtles.
But yeah, no, there was some beautiful. Yeah, I know what you're saying about some beautiful shots. Maybe some good Technicolor back in the 80s. You know,
like there's like some shot, like there's like I almost feel like this in throughout the whole movie. But there are like spots in this movie you could literally pause the movie, pause that frame, and then like you could like hang that in your living room. Like it's so beautiful.
But
like,
even the basic white scenes,
they're
right?
so good. Like the white and like what's that guy? What's the name of the character who's like the warden of Hannibal Lecter's like psychiatry thing?
Yeah,
he's like the warden or whatever. And
yeah.
the guard, there's a scene where the guard is like, we have a note from Lecter's book or whatever, and they show the book. Look at that guy's desk. Everything is white. Like the desk is white, the pencil sharpener is white, the lamp is white. It's so like,
even if you go and look at the scene of him behind bars and them talking to one each other, like it's the way it's shot. They both are behind the bars.
Yeah.
Like you don't almost know who's
in jail. Yeah.
And I think he obviously did that on purpose to show you the parallels between the way that these two guys think. Right? Like about his whole like what does he say? Smell yourself or something?
Yeah. you want to get the scent, smell yourself.
Yeah, because he's like, you're like me. Like that's why. Like and you know, as the movies go on, that was a continuous theme, right? A Hannibal Lecter character and Will Graham, right? So I and obviously it kind of went into the show as well. But
which I have not seen. By the way, full disclosure, Manhunter and Silence of the Lambs are the only Hannibal Lecter that I've seen.
Really?
I've never saw the sequels to the Anthony Hopkins ones.
I was gonna save this for later, but let me mention it now then. I just watched Red Dragon today. It's a Brett Ratner directed film.
I like Brett Ratner. I know you were gonna your boy Rush Hour, right?
Oh, I love Rush Hour.
That's what I remember you said that last time.
You're like, Red Dragon.
Yeah, the guy who directed Rush Hour directed so I guess we should explain this. Like
yeah.
So these are based on novels by Thomas Harris.
Yes.
And this is the first book in the story. This actually comes before published before, and it happens before Silence of the Lambs. Even though Silence of the Lambs is probably the most ubiquitous story, I guess.
Because it won an Academy Award.
It was a very popular pop culture movie when it came out, much more than Manhunter.
This film did not do well when it came out. This film did not. This has been more of a cult hit.
Exactly, absolutely.
Especially for Michael Mann fans, of course. Yeah. But I feel like Mann fans. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Mann. What does he say? That's in that
he's a man's man.
Pacino movie where he's the devil or whatever.
Devil's Advocate.
I'm a fan of Mann. Yeah, that's what he says in a Devil's Advocate.
I'm gambling again. No, that's another. I know. Just felt like saying that.
But yeah,
just throwing out lines here.
So Dino De Laurentiis.
That was the jambalaya or whatever.
Yeah, the jambalaya. Okay, so
sorry,
we're throwing out Pacino lines now. Okay,
what show are you watching?
I know. So Dino De Laurentiis bought the rights to this story, the Red Dragon storyline, which is like I think regarded as the story of Hannibal Lecter. Like a lot of people refer to, like you said, it's the first one.
It's the first part.
The book's called Red Dragon, but they called this movie Manhunter. Here's the thing: he bought the rights to certain characters in the book for this story, but he doesn't own the right. That's why they went to and did Silence of the Lambs after this, because he owned the rights to these characters, so they couldn't therefore at that time do. Sorry, that storyline. They couldn't do Red Dragon again. So then they kind of went for the Clarice character in that angle and they recast.
Yeah.
even the character in this movie, I don't know if you noticed, Jay, he's not referred to as Lecter, it's Lector.
Yeah,
Hannibal
the credits,
Lecter.
it's
Yeah,
spelled differently.
right.
Yeah.
Because again, it's all the rights. The rights are all mixed up. Like from what I understand now, from looking it up, MGM, the movie studio, they own a lot. They own half the rights, and Dino De Laurentiis owns half the rights. But they weren't able to revisit it till later on. I guess he gave them because he's a producer, cited as a producer on the remake of Red Dragon. I guess he allowed them to use them to redo that film with now the new kind of Anthony Hopkins as him. But for a while there, like the rights were really messed up about this. And if you guys watch the Hannibal show, that is also focused on the Red Dragon storyline throughout the first bit.
The Tooth Fairy, and
but he is out of prison on that show at the start, like, and then they catch him right as the series goes on, and then there's
like
that
prequel in a sense.
It's very interesting if you look at the parallels between Manhunter and Silence of the Lambs. They're almost the same story if you really think about it. The FBI agent, but there's differences because Will is a seasoned, he's also a man, and Clarice, Jodie Foster's character, is a woman, and that's like she's like a novice.
She's
a rookie.
New FBI
she's a rookie,
agent,
yeah.
Yes.
So she's like, but it's also, I think that one of the points of that movie was like how like women are like objectified in the workplace and stuff, or like, you know, it's like there was this whole kind of like element of that in the storyline. This is like it's more like this is a guy, he's already caught Lecter, and he has this insane, like, you know, he's kind of recovered from that trauma. And now, but it's like very similar, the storyline where he goes and he tries to enlist Lecter quote unquote. He goes to him for advice on how to catch this new killer, and that's sort of the similar thing in Silence of the Lambs.
The mind of a killer to
get in the mind of the
killer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's the same thing in Silence of the Lambs. Exactly. Well, that's actually, I was going to say, that's one of the most interesting things about this movie. The fact that this movie even exists in that sense, that this actually exists outside of those films with Anthony Hopkins, outside of that other Red Dragon film, which, by the way, I watched for the first time. I had never seen it. I would suggest for anybody out there who has not seen that movie, do not watch that movie because it's terrible.
How was Edward Norton in it?
Here's the thing. It is a star-studded cast in that film. There's a great cast. It is a terrible movie. It's just, I will say it's terrible because after watching this movie and comparing the two, it's the worst thing that you can do, because this is just a very different, the way they look at everything in this film is very different than the other film. I will say the only thing it's interesting about the Red Dragon, the Brett Ratner film with Anthony Hopkins, is at the start of the movie, they actually do show him catching him.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, like, you know, that whole scene that he describes in the supermarket in this movie?
Yeah.
They show that going down where he's visiting him as a friend, as a colleague that he bounces ideas off of to help catch somebody. And he's like,
was he his patient?
He's just like, no, well, in the show he was.
Oh, okay.
And they didn't really explain that in the movie,
right.
but he's going to him. He helps the police essentially catch people. Like he's assisting them.
Oh, Hannibal Lecter does.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
He's assisting them as a psychologist or whatever. Yes, yeah. So he goes to him and then he notices that book on the wall. Like, this is in the Brett Ratner Red Dragon. He notices the book about the battle wounds, the war wounds or whatever. Like, and then he opens it and there's a note in it that basically he's planning his meal essentially, because he used to serve meals to people.
Yeah. Right.
And he wouldn't know they'd be eating people, right? Like, so, and
which this movie doesn't reference, I don't think. They don't reference the cannibal element of Hannibal, which I kind of like that they didn't do that.
So they included that in Red Dragon, the Brett Ratner movie, and it was like a quick, like 10-minute kind of intro where they show how he actually caught him, and then the movie starts. And then from there, it's almost like a I don't want to say shot for shot, but all the scenes are very similar to this film. But and all the line readings are things right from the book, I'm guessing, from the screenplay. It's the same, and it's just not as good. Like, Ray Fiennes plays Dollarhide in that movie.
Right.
Like, there's a good cast, but it's just like comparing the two. Harvey Keitel is
Jack Crawford?
Is his role. It's a good cast. It's just a bad movie. Comparing it like I did, because I was curious. I was like, that's what I'm
curious. I'm curious to see that too.
That's what I had never seen. But watching it right after watching Manhunter in preparation for this show, do not go watch both these movies, guys. Like, I was even thinking, hey, maybe that'd be a good movie pairing. It's not. This is the far superior film to that Red Dragon.
But you know what? It brings up the interesting sort of conversation about, like, you know, you give one person a script, you give like two people the same script, you're gonna get two completely different movies
Yeah.
because they have two completely different like sensibilities, and it's just like when you who's gonna compare it to the visual like awness of like Michael Mann? Like you can't do it. You can
Yeah.
never do it. Like in your like he's the best.
And then like Edward Norton's playing it where you could see he's not trying to be William Peterson, but he is basically like a William
this
Peterson
has a great
type.
cast too. William Peterson kills it in this movie. I like he's sick.
He's not a big
That's what made
name.
his career.
though.
Well, no, he's
what
not a
made
big
his
name, but
career.
like I'm talking like the performance that you saw in Manhunter, like
Yeah, he's
it's
great in this.
amazing. Like
It's almost a shame that this movie didn't do well, and then I don't feel like he found big success till later on with CSI.
Mhm.
This guy's a big CSI guy, right? Like, this
He's a
is what
top,
he's
yeah, forever.
this is
yeah.
probably what got him.
No, that was
the-
this is before, obviously.
No, but like
right?
the planted the
Oh,
idea
yes.
of him being a cop. Like maybe that's what the CSI producers were like, man. Oh, he was also
Well,
in one movie. Maybe you guys
to
have seen
live
it.
free,
To Live and Die in
Die in
LA. I have
LA,
not
yeah.
seen it. Is it?
that's what got him this role. was
Yeah?
that movie.
This
yeah.
that came up before, right?
Yes.
But was that a good?
I have
that-
never seen it, but I
yeah.
do know that he got it because of that role on that movie. Like they kind of wanted to cast him in
Mhm,
this. So like he had a good run at this point in time, and then he kind of just did nothing with it. It felt like, and then obviously this movie didn't do well, so that didn't help either. But my history with the movie is, like I said, I just watched it for the first time last year. I probably watched it like
Nice.
4 times now because I
Nice.
watched it twice the first time I watched it because I didn't even know this thing existed. To learn that a movie existed with Anthony Hopkins not playing Hannibal Lecter, who I've known to play this character life, except for him in the show, which
Mads
was
Mikkelsen.
Mads
But
Mikkelsen
they
was great
did-
in it.
They
Actually.
did the Red Dragon storyline in the show as well, right?
Yes.
So they essentially did this story 3 times,
Yes.
right? So how was the show version?
good.
Yeah, it's like it's done well.
The show is excellent.
Okay.
The show is really good.
Okay.
I at that time I wasn't sure they were going to be able to pull it off with another Hannibal Lecter because like I feel like Anthony Hopkins is that character now, right? And I don't feel like this is either a forgotten film or a film that people aren't even aware of. Like me,
no, that's
right.
true.
Until you told me Michael Mann directed this film and it piqued my interest to go check it out. I didn't know this existed.
Me
this
neither.
movie.
I
I'd
didn't
never
know it
heard of
existed until I did the Michael Mann thing, the Michael
Right.
Mannathon that I was
Right.
on, and that's so much a good thing. That's a good exercise to do if you wanna like. You'll end up watching movies that you're never otherwise motivated to
Right.
watch. Because I would have never known this movie had I not just gone out of my way and said, "Yeah, let me watch all of Michael Mann's movies." And fast forward how many years later, I'm happy I did that because this is what did you? So Jay never heard of this movie before I mentioned it for our pick. So
No.
what do you
Yeah,
think? Because I know you like the True Detective kind of stuff, and so how does
that's what
this
I mean. This is
sort of
like
stack up for you?
Like I liked it. I liked it because I got the like little bit of a scoop of how it came like where it started off, what point we're starting off in, because I had seen the TV show, right? So I seen the Hannibal before,
Yeah,
and I've seen the Hannibal after in jail, like when it's Anthony Hopkins, but I never seen sort of that view through the eye of the cop, right? In that sense, like I can see that now where I can relate to show into how he became, how fucked up he was, right? In this like sort of dealing with some like I don't know if Nico had said it, but he said it to me the other day about PTSD and shit like that.
Yes.
There's kind of a little bit of an aspect of that in there, right?
Yeah, I kind of gave
the show with
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, I kind of gave JT a primer the other day, like kind of like because he said he started it and he was having a hard time getting into it. So I kind of, as I did with Christine, because she just watched it with me for the first time the other day as well.
Nice.
It almost honestly simultaneously, like I almost don't want to set people up with explaining where this takes place and the whole idea of Silence of the
Right,
Lambs.
because they're just going to compare it to it.
Exactly. Which I think that it's hard to compare these two films. You really shouldn't, even though it is within the same kind of world, right?
I compared it, and then I went the other way and compared it more to the TV show, right? And putting
I think that's
in the
better.
Interesting.
I think that's better to compare.
Is there the Man influence in the Hannibal show at all? Or no, they don't do that.
No, I wouldn't say that, but I think he's right that it's a better comparison to the TV show. It's actually not good to compare it to Silence of the Lambs because Silence of the Lambs is such a great film. and this is so different than that film, that comparing the two, not to say this isn't great, but to compare these two, like that's Christine was actually a little bit let down because the whole time she was thinking like
It's the Silence of the Lambs,
it's more in line with that because she loves Silence of the Lambs, right?
Yeah.
So it almost helps in a way to kind of set somebody up to at least let them know where this takes place in the timeline and why this movie exists. But at the same time, it sucks because then they're thinking of where it takes place comparatively to Silence of the Lambs as well. I will say this, though.
I mean, I still think it. I'm still thinking of like that in my head,
Right.
but I'm realizing that Jodie Foster is just another FBI agent that's doing the same
Right.
thing like everybody else, that's profiling these serial killers to help find something else, right? In that sense. So I'm understanding it now, right?
I do think it's so interesting though where this film takes place. Like the first time I watched it, even I was lost. I to try to think, like, it's such a weird place. Like the movie literally starts with him trying to bring him back into another case. And you don't know until later on in the movie why he's so, if this was their first exposure to this story, the place they choose to start the movie, like in his, like that place in his life, is very interesting place to start the movie. Like you just dive right in.
That's what I like about it. Though.
He doesn't spoon feed you.
No, it doesn't.
You're like, you need to figure
good.
out where, like, what happened to this guy exactly. And he's referring to. It would have been so weird to watch this without that context at the time of not knowing the book and not knowing the source material and not knowing who this character is. Watching this movie, you'd be like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? And then as the movie goes on, it's really not until that scene that he has with his kid in the supermarket where he really explains what really happened.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a great scene too.
Which is, I mean, jumping the gun a little bit. Yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes of this film, right? But like, it's just, again, interesting the way they approach this story at the start of this movie.
I just appreciate this movie almost for like the like you said, like you can't believe it exists kind of artifact that it is, because this is like, if like, I don't know, if like Tarantino made the Star Trek movie or whatever, right? Because you have all this Star Trek stuff, but then you would have like a Tarantino, which is like, would probably be singular, right? Like in that sense, it's like you have all these Hannibal Lecter movies, but Manhunter to me stands apart from them. I'm not gonna say which one is better. I will say though, of the two that I've seen, Manhunter and Silence of the Lambs, I like this more than Silence of the Lambs. And
see, I would disagree. I like Silence of the Lambs more personally. I love Silence of the Lambs, man.
No, I like Silence. You know what's so funny too? I watched Silence of the Lambs the very next day when I revisited back in December. It's so crazy. I saw this movie.
But again, two very different movies.
Two different movies.
I like
That's why
both.
I'm not telling you which one is better, because they are different. Like that, you can't really. It's like apples and oranges. You can't really compare them, kind of.
Yeah.
But I saw this movie. Then the next day, just by chance, I ended up seeing Silence of the Lambs. Then the very next day after that, I saw 7. So it's kind of like interesting because I feel like 7 is like the kind of progression of that, kind of like that darkness in Silence of the Lambs in a way. But and then I think it just like kind of just caps off with like True Detective season 1, which is like maybe the most pitch black, like nihilistic shit I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, you know, like where was I going with this? I like the thing with I just, you know, Silence of the Lambs, to me, that shit makes my skin fucking crawl. Like it's so chilling and blood boil. Like I'm just looking at this like, whoa, this is like uncomfortable to watch. Everything about that movie, when they like dig into that person's mouth and they pull out the cocoon of the moth or whatever, and it's just like everything is so uneasy about that movie. It's a great film. Visually, it's subtly very well directed. Like I don't like when they do perspective shots and stuff, that's really good. But to me, like when I'm talking about just like, I love the architecture, the craftsmanship that Mann did for Manhunter. To me, it's like the black suit, like JT mentioned it, like Will Graham's like black suit against like a white background and stuff, and just like the composition of the shots. The eye is like the way the same people say how like David Fincher is a very like visual guy. I kind of look at like Michael Mann in that same sort of lens. Like he's just like everything about it. Like that scene when he's like trying to figure out, because I'm maybe kind of going ahead of myself, when he figures out how the killer knows, and he's looking out the window and you see the building in the background and he's like touching the window glass, or when he's in the coffee shop and he's like, it's raining, and there's just such a poetic beautiness.
Scene,
there's just such a poetic beautiness to this movie that is like nobody could have. This is a true poet. This is a true artist.
So there's a quote that I heard about his on another podcast that he made about this movie. He purposely
Michael Mann?
Yeah, Michael Mann basically said about this film. I can't cite the quote exactly, but basically the main idea behind it was that he was not trying to do realism with this film.
Right.
He was taking the approach where which later on in his career, he's very more doing realism, kind of more realistic kind of storytelling. And this is why it kind of feels like more like this dreamlike kind of approach that he takes in this. It was purposeful him doing this film this way because for whatever reason, that's the direction he wanted to go with this. But having that juxtaposed with the serious material that this is based on is very, not only that, juxtaposed with 80s like music
I love it.
It's very,
that's my jam, bro.
I love it. It's an interesting mix, but it's like what we've come to compare that to, even like we said, Silence of the Lambs, 7, those are perfect examples.
Right.
Much darker, much more serious. This is not
a scary movie.
No,
not really.
And there's not even any violence that he shows throughout until the end of the film. Yeah. You don't even see anybody like, well, yeah, there's a couple of things, but not like with the guy on fire on the chair and all that. But like they pan away in that scene. You don't see him bite the shit out of them. It's like, you know what I mean? You just hear some screaming. Like he doesn't actually show you a lot of the violence. He just builds tension and kind of like unsettling, like some of these unsettling scenes when he's kind of investigating it. Like you see blood all over the room, but you don't actually see the murder. Whereas another film might actually, try to go deeper into that, right, and show you more kind of scary things. Right?
I love that you say it's dreamlike. It is very.
It is
dreamlike, and I just to like make the point here. If I showed someone Manhunter and they were like, "Oh my god, this is so good," and then I wouldn't even steer them towards Silence of the Lambs. I would steer them towards other Michael Mann movies. Right. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, not Silence of the Lambs. I'd be like, go check out Thief now or something like that. Like, because that's sort of what this is. Obviously, that's what it's building. His
approach to it is just very interesting because I feel like I honestly I could see somebody watching this not digging the 80s vibes, not digging the music that
which I don't know how you don't like. I'm such a sucker for 80s pop music too, which like is
I could see someone not liking it because of that, honestly, because like again, you're treating some serious material with like some like,
but it is serious
synthy kind of sound wavy, like kind of like the 80s like vibe type music that you got going on here.
I don't like that you say it's not serious. It is serious, but it's just it's just not like brooding kind of like it's not like what Silence of the Lambs
scenes in this for sure.
But
it's not treated the same as those films. I mentioned that great shot of like them sitting on the beach, and it's sorry, I always forget the Dennis Farina's character. What's his
Jack Crawford?
Jack Crawford. I almost said Jack Walsh there.
Or Jack Clayton? Is it Jack Clayton? Crawford, yeah.
So Jack Crawford is sitting there with his wife, opposite of each other in seats, looking over at the sun.
I love that shot.
Yeah,
and
they're both sitting there watching them on the beach, and the sun is going down, and it's all red. And like I said, the blue in the bedroom, that whole scene again, just like a really nice looking film from the get go. Like you mentioned, the rain kind of scene coming down in the window. Even there's a scene where he's kind of over a dock and there's smoke billowing out from underneath the dock as he's staring into the night when he's at like just things like that. Like you said, gorgeous. Just like great looking
master shit. But like I love so when he's when they're both sitting it like that scene you just mentioned with him, his wife, and they're in chairs and they're looking out.
Yeah.
Just the lines of the chairs and the tables, like all the just how they cut through, even when they're laying in bed together, and then like the diagonal, how like the ocean is like cut through like half the frame.
Christine couldn't get over why there's just a bed floating in the middle of the room. Like there's no headboard. It's literally they're just sitting there with the pillow.
Who wouldn't want a bedroom like that? That sounds like heaven, bro. When you're sleeping and the water is right there.
That
like,
house, oh my God, it is
beautiful.
Yeah, the scenery.
Yeah.
And then I also kind of mentioned that again. I wrote down the fact that again, ongoing themes in Michael Mann films. We always talk about this: the beaches, the time is luck thing. Like there's
the opening shot when they're on the log and he's facing one way and the guy's facing the other way. It's just like that's what I'm talking about. You could like freeze that, take that photo, and you could hang it as like fine art in your living room, and it's like it would work,
And then I just mentioned as well, like, the way he examines the same occurrence using music, juxtaposing certain scenes of serious material, keeping with the very 80s vibe of this film. And it's almost in celebration of Will Graham's like journey of self-discovery, this film, honestly. Like there's all these great build-up moments of like the music when he's discovering things, when he's actually coming up with these things, when he's like doing his thing and actually, figuring out things based off of the clues that he's been given so far, and like watching the same video 1,000 times, right? And working with Hannibal Lecter, and you know what I mean? Feeding off of him, like that energy. I like all that stuff, man.
You know what's so crazy? Would you say, like, in a way that this movie has sort of like, it didn't do well at the time, but now people have sort of found a new appreciation for it? I'm sure like those Ringer guys have something to do with that too, for promoting Michael Mann's films in general. Like, but even before them, because I didn't know that they were so into Michael Mann's movies. Like when I was watching Michael Mann's movies, even before then, I could sort of get the idea that, okay, wow, there's like a general audience, like a cult audience for this guy's movies and his appreciation. I think Miami Vice is another one that people took maybe like a couple of years to kind of turn around on. And I think Manhunter is the similar sort of boat. I feel like the spaciness, the etherealness, I theorize that like a reason why that is kind of like in vogue now is because music kind of came back to that sort of vibe too a little bit, with like the spacey beats, like, like Playboy Cardi and shit, like when people listen to like that type of production, the cloud rap,
the Weeknd definitely,
the Weeknd, Drake, Travis Scott, Kanye, like
Lady Gaga literally just put out an album that's like 80s vibe.
Yeah, like we kind of came back to the 80s a little bit in sensibility. So
why?
I don't, dude. The 80s was. I mean, I didn't live in the 80s, but I wish I did, because that shit looks sick.
It actually hurts me whenever Quentin like, I understand why he trashes that era so much, but that's like my go-to era for comedies. Like I love 80s.
I don't know if we want to do too much of a sidetrack, but I feel like a big reason why he shits on the 80s, and he never says this, but I think this is a big reason. It's because he was in his 20s during that time. When you're in your 20s, you fucking hate everything. Like,
I also get it from his perspective, how a lot of that shit wasn't.
You rebel against everything. Everything is not good enough for
a lot of this shit in his eyes wasn't taking chances, he says, and like it was lame, like, so to speak.
But this was like one of those exceptions. And there was another movie he mentioned, and I just want to bring this one up: Year of the Dragon with Mickey Rourke. Have you seen that one?
No.
That was directed by Michael Cimino. I haven't seen it, but that movie came out a year before this, Manhunter. Mickey Rourke, I think he's like a NYPD cop or something. That's a big reason why they didn't call this movie Red Dragon, for two reasons.
Because it did badly. That's right. I heard that.
Because
that movie did badly.
It just had just come out recently. They didn't want to think this was any way associated with that. And then number two, because they didn't want people to think this was like a kung fu movie if it had the word dragon in it, like Enter the Dragon or whatever. So it's called Manhunter, and I think even Michael Mann said he doesn't like the name of
I wish it was called Red Dragon.
No, I wish I like that.
It makes a lot more sense.
Me personally, I love that it's called Manhunter, because now it's the perfect separation from all the other Hannibal Lecter stuff. Like, I like this to exist on its own island, its own peninsula, like as this own thing. Like,
I just think it sucks because there's a world where there's a Brett Ratner Red Dragon movie, and it has the better name out of the two, in my opinion. And this is the movie that should have been his movie. Should have been called Manhunter.
I haven't seen the Ridley Scott one, just called Hannibal.
Oh, that was good.
Okay, I gotta check that one out.
I like that one.
And then there's the last one, Hannibal
Rising. I've seen them all now. I've never seen Red Dragon prior to this. Sorry, what's that, Jay?
No, there is a Hannibal Rising too.
I think Hannibal Rising was the prequel, like in his college years.
I like that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I like that one.
Again, I have only seen Manhunter and Silence of the Lambs as far as Hannibal Lecter is concerned. But I feel like those because obviously Anthony Hopkins was in them. I feel like those sequels were probably building off the visual language that was established in Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
Am I right in saying that?
Yes.
Kind of like Brett Ratner was probably looking at Silence of the Lambs. He wasn't looking at Manhunter, like when he was making Red Dragon, most likely, right?
I feel honestly there's some stuff in Silence of the Lambs that is looking at this, though.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Because think about the music choices in Silence of the Lambs.
When Buffalo Bill is doing the dance. That scene creeps the shit out of me. Oh my god.
No, but think of that. Like some of the music choices,
he's like, I would fuck me or whatever.
Yeah. Think of the music choices in that scene. Think of think of this scene. Literally, the end of this movie is the same as Silence of the Lambs, where she figures it out. She gets on a plane and they go and she takes him down. It's exactly the
It's a
same
similar
as this
story.
movie.
Yeah.
When they finally figured it out because of the lunar cycle thing, hers was like they knew he was going to kill again, so they needed to get to Buffalo Bill before he would take another victim because he had that woman in the hole there for so long, right? So like it's the same thing. It's the same exact.
It's a very interesting parallel I find, like the Manhunter versus Silence of the Lambs.
Eye, you're looking at it at a different eye from a different character's eye, really. This
exactly. One's a man and one's a woman. It's
cool.
like an interesting balance. Like it's an interesting. They're different stories because of that, I think.
Yeah, but Jodie Foster's character never caught Hannibal, is what I'm saying. So you're still not getting the grand part, right, of it. But this is what I'm saying. This is good to see that part of it, right? Like, and now to understand it more clearly.
If you watch Brett Ratner's Red Dragon, at the end of that movie, they set up the fact that the guy's like, because it's the same warden, it's the same dude. Sorry,
Jack Chilton or
the doctor. The doctor. You know, the doctor looks over him in the prison. Yeah. It's the same dude from Silence of the Lambs that's in the.
But he's
Dragon.
more like a creep in the Silence.
Also, it's like 12 years later. Okay, yeah. So like they're older. Now.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
the timeline,
Red Dragon came out like 11 or 12 years after Silence of the Lambs.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did.
It came out 6 years.
2002.
I thought it's like.
This is 86 and Silence of the Lambs is like
Red
91.
Dragon. You're talking about Hannibal's Red Dragon, right?
Oh, you're talking about Hannibal's Red Dragon. Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about Silence of the Lambs. I'm sorry. Yeah. You're right.
So
2002.
So that's the part that sucks about that movie too. They're playing in the storyline themselves younger before Silence of the Lambs, but yet they're 11 or 12 years older.
Yeah. Okay.
So
it's weird.
At the end of the movie, the guy comes in. It was the same guy from the Silence of the Lambs. And then he goes to him, oh, yeah, some FBI agent is here. She wants to talk to you, but I told her no. And then all of a sudden he's like, what's her name? And then it just ends the movie.
Oh, Clarice.
Yeah, obviously.
That's Clarice.
But they set up
that's a TV show too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like some Marvel ending.
Oh,
like,
yeah, there's a Clarice show now too. I forgot.
Yeah.
He's not in it though. He's not in it.
Who's not in it?
It's Hannibal. He's not in it.
No, it's her eye. It's her eye doing other stuff.
I just wanted to mention something because JT said that she doesn't catch Hannibal or whatever. Like technically in this story, Graham's sort of battle with Hannibal has already been over. That's already in the past.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting.
Prior TV show, that other TV show Hannibal that I was talking about.
Yes.
It's just so interesting though. Like Hannibal Lecter is like the most famous, like the most pop culture kind of character out of all these stories. Like, but if you look at Manhunter, you look at Silence of the Lambs, he's not really like a big like that's not who they're looking for.
So Anthony Hopkins is one of the actors that's won the Oscar for the least amount of screen.
He's like 16 minutes in the movie.
18 minutes,
18
I think
something.
it is.
Yeah.
In this, it's even less.
Yeah, it's even less. They're not huge characters in the story.
Brian Cox is not like I could have actually used. That's actually one of my criticisms of this movie. I could have used 1 or 2 more scenes with him in this.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I really like his version of the character.
Me too.
And we didn't get enough of him in this. At least in Silence of the Lambs, you have a whole story of him escaping. You know what I mean? Like you have a whole other great part of that character in that movie. I understand why he won based off of it was a little.
It was brilliant.
It was me. He's great. That's
awesome.
That's what I mean. It's hard for me not to compare because like that is my Hannibal Lecter still. But
Anthony Hopkins.
But Brian Cox is very good.
I love
this,
Brian Cox
right?
in this
like,
too. I would say probably Anthony. Anthony is the definitive Lecter. I think that's kind of like that goes without saying, kind of like he's the better one. But it's so interesting, and I was gonna save this for when we talked about that scene, but I saw this one YouTube video around the time I saw this movie for the first time, and I wish I could find it, and I'll send it to you guys. If I do find it, there's this guy. He's like a real life clinical psychologist, whatever, and he was talking about that scene when Will Graham visits Hannibal Lecter for the first time, and they're in that jail scene, and it's like opposing shots or whatever. He says that this clinical psychiatrist, he said that scene is the greatest depiction of insanity he's ever seen in a movie, not just from Brian Cox, but from both actors. Because like Will Graham is also insane, like, and the way he's portraying it.
See, again,
the way he's portraying it, like the intensity in his eyes, and like the guy was even. This is like a real life professional saying, "Wow, I've never seen a depiction of insanity like this good before, from
But
not just from the obvious insane person, but from both of them. Like, so I just thought that was interesting. I want to find that video. I'll send it to you guys. Like, so, and I've heard a lot of people who say that they prefer like again, I'm not gonna try to say Manhunter is better than Silence. Silence is better than Manhunter. I think they're both great, and they both have their great qualities. I personally like Manhunter more just because of those sensibilities that I like about it. But um, I'm not gonna say Brian Cox is better than whatever, but there's a lot of people who are like, yo, I like saw the insanity in Brian Cox's performance that I didn't quite see in Hopkins. It was more kind of like playing like a Frankenstein monster. It was like he was playing like Dracula in that movie, kind of like, you know.
Well, that's what how this the TV show is too. Like he's an actual doctor. Like he's a very smart and played an intellectual before all of this, before he ends up in jail and getting caught. Like I mean, this is where people don't. I think the separation comes because they don't realize that Hannibal Lecter is playing a psycho person. Literally, it's like there's nothing else to describe him. He's literally a psycho, bro. There's nothing, and he loves to play that, and he feeds it. You can see how he's feeding off. Even Brian Cox, the way he's acting as it, he's feeding off of it, man. He's feeding off of just trying to pretend he's a crazy person. I could see it in that way of style of acting, right? Even Graham too himself as well. He's actually, you can see them physically. I don't know if it's the filming or how they do it, but they're physically in their heads. You can see them thinking.
It's just so interesting of where they chose to start the film with this storyline, because without that information and knowing about this character, what he had just been through, it's almost like the stuff that you end up seeing later on that better informs the character in this movie, like we saw in the other film versions of Will Graham and we saw on the show and all that. I actually am glad that I ended up seeing this when I did, because it does help better inform what this character has been through when this movie starts. But without that kind of context, having watched this right out the gate, like if you've seen this for the first time, I don't think if it would hold as much weight. It would be as effective.
Seeing Hannibal the show first, and then
anything else prior to this, like the way that I watched this, because I watched all the other Hannibal stuff other than the Red Dragon remake, which I watched for this film. This film discussion here today, which again, it was a mistake. I wish I had it. I just don't like comparing those two. I'd rather compare every other version of it than comparing the exact same version story of the film. That was
which is funny because that's probably the one you should compare,
right?
to,
but you should no. I very much know.
It's been so long since I've watched the Hannibal.
I did see Silence of the Lambs first.
So did I. Yeah,
like everyone, I think
I've seen Silence of the Lambs, and then I watched like the Hannibal Rising, Hannibal one, and then I watched the show, and then I've watched this now, and then I watched the Red Dragon. I seen all those before this, but going into this and not knowing what this character has been through with the PTs, I can't stress that enough. It's such an interesting. Like even those conversations, they don't maybe mean as much in the moment. You have to watch this movie more than once.
But that's such a good thing about, like, I don't know if they do it now, but like how movies used to be made, they didn't really like hold your hand so much. It's also reminds me of like video games. Like when you used to play video games, they didn't tell you how to play it. You just pick up your controller. You just have to figure it out. Now when you open up a video game, the first part is like learn how to play the character. It's like they're teaching. There's like a tutorial telling you how to play that.
But this is why you like revisiting this movie, because this rewards the viewers after multiple viewings. If you watch this back in 1986 in the theater for the first time and you didn't know anything about this, you'd walk out of there. I guarantee you, I wouldn't have liked it. Probably, I'd be like, I was like, what the hell is going on in this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there would be certain aspects of this film that I probably wouldn't get. Even the first time I watched it, I had to kind of watch it again, like almost directly after, like later that week, because I'm like, I don't know if I absorbed everything that was really going on here. Because then you start looking at the film differently, because I'm like, obviously there's a reason why Michael Mann fans like this movie so much. But I was looking at it through the lenses of Silence of the Lambs, though. I'm like, this is weird compared to Silence of the Lambs. Like, what is this? Like, there's a different. Why is he saying? Why are they saying his name, Lector? Why is it this guy? You know what I mean? I was very confused the first time I watched this.
But don't you think they would, if you did see this in 1986, there would be less confusion because Silence of the Lambs hadn't come out yet? This is your only reference point to this. Because character.
I don't know if I'd have been able to follow this story if I watched this one time only. Honestly, there's a lot.
Maybe
a lot to take take in this movie.
Maybe. Yeah.
Right? Like I that's what I mean. I think it rewards it through multiple viewings, right?
But I guess because this is the I've never read the Thomas Harris novel with the Red Dragon, which came out before Silence of the Lambs, like the actual book.
Yeah.
Like I would be interested to actually start like reading them now.
Yeah.
Does
I
it
was just
open up?
Googling.
Does it open up with Will Graham catching Hannibal, or does it open up with them on the beach and then he goes and then it's like does it open up kind of like how the movie opens? Like that would just be kind of interesting to see, like how does Thomas Harris tell that story? Is it more like a traditional sort of like A to Z storyline, or is it done in the same manner that Michael Mann did it, where it opens up?
I don't know.
That would just be interesting to find out.
That's what because I had asked my dad too if he had seen this one, because he's seen
nice.
I know he's read the book, but I didn't think of to ask him about where it kind of. But when I talked to him, he says he can't compare it to, because he was saying compare it the same way along the TV show lines, right? Where it plays off, because I couldn't remember what Jodie Foster was in Silence of the Lamb, if she was trying to play like the girl version of this, and you know what I mean? No,
FBI
she was just doing her own thing. Yeah, she was just doing her own thing, FBI, and
I'm curious, is this movie the origin of this like 80s cop like synth sort of thing? Like, is this like the movie to do it, or
no? Because I mean, he was even doing Miami Vice.
Okay,
right?
but still like a Michael Mann thing, right? Like
absolutely,
he's the one that kind of
that's what I attribute it to.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I haven't seen, I guess, any this for me. I would attribite it to him.
Yeah.
Sure,
I mean, I like that. I remember I was in school one time, and the professor is just like this was like a class, and he's like, you know how like the professor tries to like kind of buddy up with the people, like the students. He tries to like, oh, you guys wouldn't like the music I had when I was growing up, that awful 80s music. And I'm looking at him like someone who actually does listen to 80s music, and I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? The 80s is fire. Like, what are you shitting on the 80s for? Like, I don't know. I guess that's just kind of like, it speaks to my sort of like, I like 80s pop, like Duran Duran and stuff like that. And you don't like that shit? New Order and stuff like that. Yo, I think
only
that
one
shit's
I
fire.
only when I like to fucking make jokes and put it in my car and have it.
Yeah, it became like the thing to like the type of music to shit on, that people like to throw daggers at, almost similar like to like disco too. But I think the 80s just rocks. Like, I love that stuff.
I did want to mention this fun fact though that I was telling you in the chat, where you said you didn't know this about this movie. I think it's very timely given the fact that we just lost Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
Again, I hate to do it. It has nothing to do with this film.
Yeah, no.
But because of the connection between Silence of the Lambs, I felt it was worth mentioning. Gene Hackman apparently was signed on to direct and star in Silence of the Lambs.
Wow. He was gonna play Lecter, or?
I don't know who he's gonna play.
Wow,
but he was supposed to star. He was supposed to direct, which is a big deal. Also a star in. He bought the right. Like he was involved in buying the rights to doing that film essentially, and had somebody writing the script for him. But I guess he wasn't as familiar with the source material, and his daughter ended up reading the book, and she told her father, "You're not doing this movie," and then he backed out of the project.
She didn't think that he could play like a chilling kind of character,
because at this time he had just did I don't think it was too dark, the material. I think
you guys want to hear a funny story? This is more related to Silence of the Lambs. Did
he eat his wife after a week, or what? Is that too soon?
So apparently, around the time Silence of the Lambs came out, Anthony Hopkins was dating Martha Stewart.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. Yeah, apparently they were like a thing or whatever. And then when she saw this movie, she was so terrified she broke up with him. She's like, "Oh hell no!"
Yeah,
which is like how convincing and how scary he was in that movie.
Yeah.
Like Silence of the Lambs is terrifying. Like such a as far as like a horror kind of thing that they were trying to go for. Silence of the Lambs, I think, nailed it better than Manhunter as far as like a horrifying kind of thing. But there is some chilling shit about Manhunter. But as like an overall piece of art, if you give me like 2 Blu-rays, which one am I taking? I'm taking Manhunter. Like that's
here's the thing too. Manhunter is more of a character piece about Will Graham as opposed to the killer, where Silence of the Lambs I think is more. I think
Killers.
more. Yeah, like it is
about the killer.
Yeah,
no, there was some interesting stuff about Jodie Foster's
of course,
character, like an examination.
But I think he's such a standout in that film in comparison to this.
Yeah, fair enough.
Where he's, I hate to say it, at least to me, an afterthought in this film, because we spend more screen time with Dollarhide in this movie. I'm saying Hannibal in this movie.
Oh yeah, Hannibal Lecter.
He's an interesting part of the story, but he's not like the main, like you know what I mean? Like Dollarhide has more screen time than
But
is
that the same with Buffalo Bill and
no,
Hannibal Lecter?
I think he's used pretty sparingly in that film.
Okay.
Actually, I would say maybe just as much as Hannibal, in my opinion, in that movie. It's mostly Clarice who's the main person in that movie for sure.
Fair enough.
I just think he was more of a standout in that film as in comparison to this.
I also just really love the structure of this, the narrative structure of this movie. How the first act is you get to know who Will Graham is, and then like Dollarhide is kind of introduced like a few minutes before the scene, but I would say like the end of the first act to me is when they're in the grocery store and he explains to his son about like the past. So it's like, okay, it comes full circle. This is why Graham is the way he is. And then they spend the next however many minutes, I would say 20 so minutes, like part 2, the act 2 is Dollarhide and his relationship with that girl, which is really good and is really like, I thought that was really well told, that storyline.
Joan Allen, the actress who plays her,
as the blind girl,
Mary,
right?
Mary, I think her name was. I forgot her name.
And
Mary.
And then it tells that story, and there's
Molly.
Joan
Allen. Who the hell did she play in here? Reba. It says here. Is that her?
What was her character's name? I forgot. Like
it says Reba.
The blind girl.
Joan Allen. That's what she plays.
Reba.
Yeah.
And it shows like
Molly's wife.
It shows this really interesting, like empathetic side of a serial killer I never saw in these types of movies before, where it's like you almost kind of feel bad for him for a moment. Almost. Like, and I'm just like, I've never seen this kind of empathetic. And you know what? Even probably one of my favorite, I'm kind of all over the place here, but like my favorite quote of the movie.
Well, we can take it into scenes here.
Should we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. I should probably do it in chronological order.
Sure.
Okay, obviously the opening I think is great. Like the actual POV of the killer going into the room, kind of like slowly, meticulously going into the room.
Even for that early.
Early, before the title credits showed up. And he's like with this flashlight or whatever. And then, you know, there's a couple.
I do like the title screen where it goes. It has that music
with the green. Yeah. But he has the flashlight, right? And then the woman is in the bed, and she kind of slowly wakes up, and then that's when it cuts, right? Then you get the beautiful shots of the ocean and everything, and all those great POV shots, and him, building the fence for the turtles with his son, kind of bonding with his son. Then the scene when Will goes to that house.
Yeah.
That's the
first scene I wrote.
It's the same POV as the killer.
Yeah.
And that was sort of like the little like implant of the idea that Will Graham is running on this sort of serial killer's mentality. He has to kind of get into the head of the killer to try and hunt him. Like he has to get into the mind of the man.
This is also one of the earliest examples of that, is like the analyzing of like the mind of a killer, right? Like I at least that I can honestly think of.
It was almost like a method acting thing where he's like, he has to be like he has to really force himself to get, what is he called, the scent, or he has to get into the mentality of these killers. And at first you know what's so funny actually, that you're talking about how like if you would see the movie for the first time you'd be confused or whatever. The first time I saw this movie I was like, why the fuck is this guy just randomly like yelling in outbursts and shit? Like it's actually like,
because he's insane.
It's insane. And now it makes all the sense. I'm like, oh, so yeah, Nico's 100% right. This is a movie that rewards multiple rewatches, which I feel like is true with a lot of Michael Mann's films. Honestly, a friend of mine just watched Heat for the first time, and he was like,
first time,
and he didn't really like it so much.
And
I don't think that's honestly out of this world. I think that's a movie that is like a lot of Michael Mann's films. Like you kind of have to grow into it. You kind of.
I just think we take it for granted now, where we literally had a show, which I'm wondering if this is why David Fincher called it Mindhunter instead of Manhunter, because it is about serial killer profiling and the start of that, the start of that art, the start of, because it's funny because you know,
real serial killers too, right?
Right, but Jay, you know this more than anybody. You know, Mr. Killer Content over here is shows with Leslie over there. That didn't. We think that has been around a long time. It hasn't been, right?
What are you referring to?
They really the criminal profiling for like serial killers, like the fact that there's actual units dedicated to that. They really only started refining that like in the 80s, right, Jay? Like honestly getting really good at it. Like, yeah. So that's why the fact that this movie exists.
They started taking a lot of notes, I think, more in the 80s, and they started doing the late 80s, early 90s, and then it started progressing from there. And that's probably how these other Hannibal Lecter films came to into intuition in that sense, right? Or even that Mindhunter show and stuff like that, right?
Right. Because I think we're taking it for granted because, like, again, this was pretty cutting edge at the time because this is 86. This is in the midst of all this stuff still developing, right? When you started to learn killers' motives and like things that they do and reasons that they do them. They are still building this knowledge at this time that this movie's made, right? So that's why it's kind of also so amazing that this character is able to do that in this movie, right? And why Jack is so like awestruck of
He's
him.
a piece of shit, by the way. I hate that character.
Dennis Farina, I love Dennis Farina.
No, I like the actor, but I hate him in like he's like such a manipulating piece of shit. The way he slides the photos to him, and he's like,
I know he pushes the photo.
Perfect, bro. If you want.
If you can't look, I understand.
Fuck you, bro. Fuck you. I hate that guy.
Because he knows he can't help it. He knows that.
No, but the thing is, and this is another thing that's common with Michael Mann's protagonists, they're all geniuses. Yeah. They're all amazing at their job. And Will Graham is a genius at, because he caught Hannibal. This is the man that caught Hannibal Lecter, right? Like, so he needs him. He knows he needs him more. Like, that's why he's pulling him out of retirement.
Well, that's why I don't know if you noticed. It's a very subtle moment, but in that opening scene that you talked about them on the beach, when his wife comes up, Molly, he's like, "Hey, Molly," and she doesn't even acknowledge him.
Fuck you. Why are you here?
Like, you're taking my husband away from me. I know why you're here. Yeah. But he said, he's like, "I'm running out of time, Will." He's like, "You only got a couple of weeks for the next lunar cycle." Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, but it's true. He knows that he can't help it because at the end of the day, he wants to save lives. He sees the family. He knows that triggers him, and then he goes and he spirals out. And again, and this is after the last events that happened to him, and he pulls him back out. Right?
He's a piece of shit.
Yeah, it is, but he does it for the right reason.
And I'm so happy that Will Graham calls him out on his bullshit at the end of the movie. He's like,
when they start yelling at each other.
When they start yelling at each other, he's like, "You came to my house with a family of 2 families, knowing there would possibly be a family 3 and 4, right, and stuff like that."
So mentioning that's one of my scenes. Or do you want to do it chronologically?
No, whatever.
Yeah, I wrote down here. Jack Crawford yells at Will to give it up as he yells at him as he becomes obsessed with the case, and they're running out of time. And he's rewatching the film for like the 1,000th time. He's rewatching that movie, and then there's that lock thing of the door that like triggers this whole like kind of domino effect of him figuring out how to get this guy's name. And then the way that scene ends, where he's talking to himself, and Jack is actually seeing him in action this time. Yeah, he's seeing it happen in real time.
The process,
the way he's talking to himself, the way he's getting in his head. And then he gets him on the phone, and he's like, "What does he say about the name or something?"
The
like,
film, pull the label back,
and he's like, "It's like that, isn't it?" Yeah. And then Jack's just look. You cut to Dennis Farina, and he's just like his mouth's like open in amazement. Yeah,
that's why you got him, bro.
But he puts his hand on the glass too. He does like a fuck.
And then that's when or as JT calls it, Grisham's theme kicks in.
Yeah.
But it's so
beautiful.
It's so badass because the camera stops on him, like thinking in his head, like in rambling, and then all of a sudden, just before that scene ends, they cut back to Dennis Farina. He's like.
So I mean, there's so much.
He's like, how the fuck does this guy know? Yeah. Great.
There's so much emotion in storytelling without even saying words at some points, right? Like just with their facial expressions and
so
the music.
Beautiful.
Like, and then you did this, didn't you, you son of a bitch? Didn't you?
That's why when he goes into those outbursts are the funniest shit. He's like, "You used the nail cutter, you son of a bitch, didn't you?
You dirty son of a bitch."
And I'm like, the first time I saw this movie, I was like, "What the fuck is he doing? Like, why is he talking like this?" And then that makes all the sense.
He's like in a
My
tree.
man.
Usually,
He's calling him his
everything
man.
is seeing with you, isn't it? Oh, you son of a bitch! You waited, and then you went into the house.
Anybody else that observed this guy would think he's off his rocker.
But that's
Like,
why. That's why when the police escorts him,
yeah,
he's like, "You like to do this on your own?" He's like, "Yes." He's like,
that
he can only do that by himself.
That scene that you mentioned when he pulls up to the car, he doesn't even he ignores that
Yeah,
guy.
because he has to get into
he's
the.
like, you want me to come in there? And then not only
Time
that,
to become crazy
this
again. You know,
dude watches the film, the home video in the room with all the blood and everything all over this place. He sits down and watches.
He's on a flight with the photos everywhere, and the little girl.
One of my favorite scenes.
Yeah,
where she wakes up out of that dream and she's like, ah,
poor kid.
It's like, whoa, where am I?
Dude, I'm amazed. Like, I'm surprised he didn't when he like goes to his hotel room and he's like watching the video. I'm surprised he doesn't unbuckle his belt and like starts whacking off to these videos. Like,
the man,
he's so fucking
the man
crazy.
Is in the murder room watching the film, man. Like, that's all you gotta say.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. But how about you, Jay?
Awesome.
Scenes.
Oh, I like those scenes with the tooth fairy. Tooth fairy, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When he's with the blind chick, right?
Awesome.
And,
so beautiful.
But that's what I mean. There's and they have the music too in the background. There's an aspect of that where it's like this is all he's kind of wanted. But you seen at the end of that with they're actually got it on, and he starts fucking crying and goes into that like fetal position. There's that weird like sort of. I think that's the aspect where one of the psychologists was saying at part of the movie where it was like where he had his own. They think he might have slept with his own mother or whatever. Blah blah blah. Right? There was a whole aspect, but then.
Well, no, they were putting that in the paper on purpose to get to him, actually, to drive him. That's why they were saying that, because there's all these like
they weren't 100% sure, right? Yeah, they had said that at the beginning with the three of them that were sitting there before, but also too when that
guy was also a piece of shit, the reporter, that sleazebag.
But yeah, even the scene that wasn't that far afterwards that follows when he's sitting outside in the car, and I guess a lot of people can relate to that in the sense that he's staring over like because somebody dropped her off, because obviously she's fucking blind, they're helping her out, right?
Yeah.
But he got into his fucking head. Yeah, he got into his fucking head, and was thinking that something. See how they show the light in the background of their face,
with the love music playing. Yeah, he's like,
and he grabs a piece of. It was like a weed or something, a little piece of weed, or I don't know, it was weed, a period or whatever. But he pulled away from her face, but he had already gone berserk by then. What's his name? The Tooth Fairy, and he already started pulling the dashboard off. That was, I think, that part. Francis isn't here anymore, right?
Tooth Fairy.
Yeah, but that's
entered the chat.
That was one of my scenes too, though, because it's so crazy that he imagines all this happening, and that's what pushes them over the edge to go out there and literally shoot the guy right away, and then
it's not irrealistic. It's not like it's actually a realistic thing. People get like that and get fucked up to the point where, I mean, I don't know if they fucking physically go kill somebody, but you know what I mean? Like, trust me, there's people, out there like that, so I can understand that part of it. That kind of struck a chord. Like, I don't know, it kind of caught my eye really.
It's also interesting to see that this guy was like a serial killer, and he's like, but when they get to his part of the story, when they really dive deep into his day-to-day life, he is also kind of like somewhat of a regular civilian, I guess. The way he's interacting with all these other people and like stuff, like it's like you would think this guy's just killing everyone he comes into contact with, like kind of like, but no, there's
the
sort of this.
Work with could be a fucking serial killer.
You never know. Like, it's crazy. Like, and that's that whole section of the movie is great, and I really love the scene when, I think Nico already mentioned it, but the scene when he cases the Birmingham, the Alabama house, when he right after the airplane in the woods, and the music kicks in, and it's just like all the POV shots are crazy. It's just a gorgeous looking movie. It's just, that's another great scene, and he climbs up the tree and shit, and
trying to figure out
why. I love that when he's up in the tree, like, and he sees the carving in the tree, and he figures out
that's why big yards.
Yeah. That's how you knew you were watching them, weren't you, you dirty son of a bitch?
I'm coming for you, my man.
Yeah, I'm coming for you, my man. And
Why
then,
is he saying that, my man? I was because it threw me off every time because you told me this movie is a Michael Mann film. I'm like, is that
yeah,
an homage to him or what?
No,
it's a man's man.
the best is yeah. I'm a fan of men. I'm telling you, no, the
Yeah, I'm a
best
man's
is
man.
the best is still the one where he after he puts his family into he has to
Into hiding?
relocate his family because Lecter exposes where his family's address is, right, from prison. And then he's worried for his family with this guy out there. After that happens, when he's sitting in the diner or wherever the hell he is, where is he when he looks out the window?
It's
It's
like an
raining.
airport or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know where it is. It's
Yeah,
something like that.
so he's maybe it was the airport. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm just thinking of diner because of heat, I guess.
Yeah.
Because the rain starts coming down, and he's just like, "I'm gonna find you, damn it!"
It's just you and me now, sport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that, but we already mentioned it, but honestly, hands down, I think the supermarket scene is probably my favorite.
Oh, it's
scene
so
of the
good.
whole movie.
So good, such good
Bro,
writing.
when does a suit? Okay, before anything, before you get into that, when the hell does a supermarket ever look like that? That's marketing 101. That's where they got all their fucking.
What do you mean?
That's why everybody in the 80s was going shopping in the fucking US because of all the fucking cereals.
Bro,
and
you
shit
watch
they had.
Supermarket Sweep. That's how it is. I actually used to work in a supermarket.
That's not how it is. It's already a mess.
No, at the end of the
You
night,
just-
you have to face up the aisles. In the start of the day, if they did their work at
JT
night,
knows something about facing up.
yeah, exactly. So
I do too,
at the start of the day, if you go to a store, that is the nicest it's usually ever going to look until it gets messed up throughout the
Supposed
day.
to be. Yeah.
Right. Supposed
What
to
do
be.
you What do you mean? You've never seen a supermarket like that before? Like
But they
with the
do,
cereal
I
boxes
don't
and
think I've ever
shit?
been
with
there that
coffee?
early, dude.
but they
I don't
do
think I've ever seen
staging
that.
for films and stuff like that. When I was working at a supermarket, they were doing something one time where they were filming there, and that's how they wanted. They wanted to
Yeah,
look that
of
perfect.
course.
That's what
It's
they did.
That's what
presentable.
I said. That was
to
their marketing for them. That was their marketing for them there. That's
Wait,
why
are
I
you
was
saying
just
you've never been inside a clean supermarket? What's your
never been that early where it's fucking still everything's so perfectly straight, bro.
Oh, I see what you mean.
That's what I'm
Oh
saying.
yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Had every fucking brand of cereal. I was watching the fucking aisle. I'm thinking, holy fuck, I haven't seen that cereal in forever. You know, that's the kind of shit was catching my eye.
Right.
There's so much shit going on in that scene. Yeah,
Items that aren't even around anymore, right?
yeah, that's the parts that were throwing me off.
But that's such a, you know what, you mentioned that scene. I love the conversation he has with his son, and his son is a little, at that point in the story, is a little like standoffish with him, just for like a moment, has this like hesitation with him. And then the way he talks to his son is like, he doesn't hold anything, he doesn't hide anything, he's so straight up and so honest, and he's like admitting to this sort of like psychological fault that he has, these flaws that he has and stuff,
Well,
and
that
are so real. And the most beautiful thing about it is the son like accepts that and is like, it's so cool with it. He's okay, what kind of coffee do you want? Like, you like that Folgers stuff, right?
Yeah, I like the way he just lays it all out for him, for sure, because he's like, yeah, because at first he asks him about all this stuff in the paper, and he's like, yeah, that man hurt me. He's like, and then I had to spend some time in the mental hospital, and then I spoke to this guy who really helped me. And now I'm, and thank God for your mother and you. And I'm so happy that you guys were able to, like, help me through that and all this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, it's true though. He kind of does flat out tell him, yeah, then I spent time in the mental ward, and now I'm doing a little better, right?
Yeah.
Like, but
he's so honest and
yes.
so like just transparent with his son. He's like, they're the worst thoughts. He's talking about like how, like, he's not really like kidding, like babying his son, like in the explanation, which I thought was just so honest. It's such a breakthrough moment, and that's like, yeah, it's a perfect scene, I think.
Also, I think you mentioned it earlier as well, and just bringing up another point, but the whole scene with the correspondence between the Tooth Fairy and Hannibal Lecter when they find it all written on the toilet paper.
Yeah,
that was a great scene.
Yeah,
I thought that was really good too, because you always had to have one of those type of scenes in one of these movies, and even going from there, how they were able to figure out the letters that were in the section.
Yeah, it's off. So like,
you're sly,
professional
but
shit.
so am I. I like that.
I always wondered, because like the scene when Hannibal Lecter trips up the phone line.
Yes.
To find out that Will Graham were his address, like it's
the gum.
Yeah. And it's like nothing to him.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. The 80's like security, right? Like they don't have.
Oh,
like,
wow.
But yeah, it was like nothing for him to find. Like literally, it was just like a walk in the park for like the guy who has like 200 plus IQ probably or whatever. I'm thinking like someone as calculated as Hannibal Lecter was all this like all these notes and stuff that they found his notes. I wonder if that was like a planted thing by him, like he wanted them to find it kind of thing. And it's like because I feel like
for sure.
never is Hannibal Lecter like a step behind. He's always a few steps ahead of everyone. Like wanted them to find that.
Well, I will say that his manipulation was on full display when he convinced that person on the phone to get him the number. The way he did it, he's like, "Well, did she have one of these beside you there with all the numbers? Well, roll on down to the letter G then, and just give me that number." Right? Like there's a way he kind of.
Bet he has a home address.
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah. He's just so charming and is able
That's,
to like.
The accent helps out. The you know what I mean? The way
Will Graham.
But bro, if you have the confidence in your voice, you're gonna get away with just about anything.
Are you guys? Did you guys end up watching Succession? Either of you guys? Or?
I started it.
Yeah.
I only watched a few episodes.
It's so interesting. Like throughout the years, seeing Brian Cox in movies. I know he was Strider in X-Men, right? Was that the character's name? The Colonel, whatever.
Yeah.
And then he was also in Zodiac. Remember, he was that news reporter guy and stuff. Like, you would see him in movies, and he was always great in the roles he played. But now he's like a household name. So like later on in his career,
different phases
because
of
Succession,
different phases.
No, it's because now, like I feel like at that point, people didn't even know Brian Cox. Now they know Brian Cox is like they know his name. Like,
did you hear the interesting tidbit about why Michael Mann asked him to play this version? He asked him to play him like a mischievous English schoolboy.
Nice.
And if you watch him,
it is kind of
right. It is much more mischievous than because Anthony Hopkins' version is scary in the sense he seems so sophisticated, but yet he'll just turn on a dime and do something diabolical.
Yeah.
This version of him, it feels like he's going to do something all the time.
Absolutely.
Like, you know what I mean? Like the way that he's like playing mind games. Yeah. I like that's what I mean. I like both versions.
I like both of them, man.
I like both versions. It's
just because they're both good movies doesn't mean, you know, you have to like say like one's better.
Can you answer me a question? Can you answer me a question? But with that scene with him at the
phones
inside well, with the phone one I thought was funny too because I'll call you back. He goes, when I'm done I'll call you, right? The phone through the thing. But okay, when Will handed him the paperwork, the file, why did they have to put it through that fucking gate? Why couldn't he just?
Because he can bite his hand. Because that's why they can't. He can grab your arm if you're gonna put something through the actual. That's why that's there.
But you notice how the guard took the folder. He took the folder and he just opened the thing and just laced it there. But then later on, when the guy gives him the phone, he's like, "Turn around, and if you try anything, I'll mace you." But the first guard was just like, all right, he puts it like no, like
but that's why they do it because you can't even in Silence of the Lambs. It's like that. You can't get close.
You're not 100%
sure
because they'll grab you and they'll use you to get out of that.
I think in Silence of the Lambs, which was like a really brilliant choice, was he wasn't even behind bars. It was like a clear.
Bro, it's Silence of the Lambs. There's guys jerking off and throwing his cum in her eye.
Yeah. Oh God, that's what I mean. That movie is so unsettling.
Award-winning scene.
So disturbing.
Award-winning.
So that was like a very ugly movie. Like you feel like you need to take a shower after you watch Silence of the Lambs. You just feel dirty afterwards. Yeah. Whereas like this shit is. No, it's good. No, I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm just saying it's like they did it very well. They gave that feeling very well. They pulled it off. But this, oh my God, this.
No, you know what? I know how I was thinking it was a low budget or whatever. The only reason there was another reason when they were killing the when he's got the reporter, what's his name there?
The Lions or Lionel. What's his name? What's that?
That guy is terrible.
Yeah,
it's like he just came off the set of Goodfellas or something.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you see? No. What do you do? What's going on?
He
reminded me of one of those. No, he reminded me of one of those guys from Entourage. Think about it now. Like just quick fit, like the way
you want to hug it out, bitch, right? Like, hey, Will Graham, you want to hug it out? Like,
hey, another picture.
Hey, Willie, hey, Vinny.
He literally says, "What do you see? What are you doing there, Will? Yeah, what's going on there? Hey, what is that accent? Like it's from Brooklyn or something." It's like,
here's the thing about like Michael Mann. I feel like to me he's like the coolest filmmaker ever. Like he almost like can't even help being so cool. Like even when that sleazeball reporter, the scene when Will Graham runs out of the hospital, he needs to get far away from Hannibal Lecter because Hannibal Lecter has like correctly deduce that this guy is also insane, and like,
Mhm.
you know, you don't need to come visit me. You are already nuts on your own. Like, you
Yeah.
want this scent smell yourself.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
guy is running out of the hospital. He's like, he has to run so far away, and he finally runs out of the building. And then you see the reporter like snapping photos and stuff. Even the car that sleazeball's in is like so gorgeous with the GT and the black car. What is a GT? Is that a Ford, I'm assuming, or a Porsche? Or
Well, I don't know.
it's just like a really nice car. Even this sleazebag reporter is in like in a nice slick vehicle, and it's just like, that's the thing with Mann. It's just like every like frame is just gorgeous to me. Like, it's beautiful.
I want one of the Tooth Fairy's fucking vans, man. That was looking
Yeah.
really sick.
Oh my
Shit,
god. Of course,
those
that's the
vans.
character you identify with, right? The most.
Well, that van is pretty sick. What are you talking about, man? Yeah, the whole windows there going. It's just like his own little motorhome.
You know, as far as favorite scenes, that's also when he links up with that girl and they're like in bed together. It's so beautiful, and the music is playing and stuff.
It is, bro.
It's really touching.
It's a different
It's
side
really
of the serial.
I've never seen that in a serial killer thing ever.
Well, because
Bro,
normally
most of them are like that.
They make them but they make serial killers, like, I'm not trying to say like, oh, they're good people or whatever, but they make serial killers look like I don't know, like
perverse
supernatural vampires or
okay.
some bullshit, like out of the fucking, like John Doe from Seven. He's just like this gecko human being or whatever. And then there's like this serial killer. This guy is a shy guy. He's insecure. He's all this shit, and that's probably why he's killing people.
He wants to be loved, bro.
Yeah, he wants to be loved. And there's this sort of like that sequence between him and that girl that is so touching, and it's just like, wow. Like, and the music is A1, like in every scene.
Well, they also connect because she has struggles because she's blind, obviously, and he's like.
Does it count if it's with the blind chick? I'm just sick of it.
He's disfigured, so to speak, because
that's the question.
He's got that cleft palate, like hair lip, that they call it, like the cleft palate thing, where that's what that scar is.
Oh,
right?
I see. Yeah.
That's what a hair lip is, or a cleft palate kind of thing. Like
okay.
that's what that scar is. Like that's a thing. Like, you know, your boy Joaquin Phoenix has that.
Does he?
That's why he's got that hair growth thing. That's weird on his actual.
Wow, I never noticed that. No,
his isn't as bad as other people's. Like,
I know Christian Bale has like this eye boil on the side of his eye that is like, if you ever see it, it's so distracting to not see it after, like, you know, like it's like a boil on his eye.
Right.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
I think I know what you're talking about, but he's like somewhat disfigured, let's say, so to speak, right? Like this character.
Disfigured.
Well, he's not.
Oh, I thought you were calling young Joaquin Phoenix.
No.
That disfigured piece of shit.
He's not, but in his eyes, he's like ugly looking, and then of course he's gonna go for the blind woman because she can't actually see him, right? So it's like, you know, she's able to appreciate him on a human level. And he's able to connect with her somehow, right? So,
by the way, the Francis Dollarhide, that actor is the same guy in Heat. He's the guy in the wheelchair that gives Macaulay the. You know that? Okay, yeah. It's like a nice...
But I mean, he couldn't. I don't think at one point I don't think he could kill her because you know how he was into the whole. He wanted to be seen, like that's why he had their eyes open. She can't, even if after he kills her, she can't see. Even if he did sit her up, like they were finding the other murders. You know, where they were sitting up, actually posed in a position where they would see him as appreciate him for, like he was appreciating him by not seeing him. You know what I mean?
But his whole thing there about seeing stuff, he was actually watching videos. He was watching and planning his next hit on the video. But
he would have their eyes
giving
open.
Her a gin and tonic and shit. Yeah. That's so creepy. That's so
unsettling. He would have them posed up with their eyes open, like he was being appreciated for something.
Yeah.
What about that scene when that woman was it Graham? I forgot who was describing it, Graham or Dollarhide, and then that woman, and there's like light coming out of her eyes, and she's like, that was a really nice shot.
Like silver eyes or what?
The silver eyes, yeah. That was.
I really like the Dollarhide scene where he kidnaps the reporter and he does the slideshow. Do you see? He's like, and there's this person. Do you see?
I'm straight, bro. Like, right? Like, I was trying to.
Right at the beginning of that scene, did you see when he ripped off? It looked like a fucking. Straight up. I'm telling you, it was a fucking maxi pad, bro. They peeled off his eyes.
Yeah,
I'm not even joking.
Probably what it was.
Yeah, literally, it was padded there like that, and pulled it right off his eyes. Oh,
no, that guy reminded me of a Seinfeld character, like one of these annoying. what's that annoying comedian that's always bothering Jerry? Like, hey, Jerry, hey, Jerry, hey, you doing a show? You doing a set tonight, Jerry?
Yeah,
Like
the Ovaltine
yeah,
comic. Yeah, he talks about Ovaltine.
yeah,
Kenny Benya.
yeah. Kenny Banya. That's what that reminded me of.
That's
Jerry.
That's gold, Jerry. Gold. Yeah, that guy.
Hey, Graham, how they do it, Graham? Hey, you want to tell me how they do it?
He literally says, I wrote it down here. He's like, I wrote down that this is one of my things I didn't like about the movie is that character.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
He just rolled off the scene of a gangster movie. What do you hear? What do you say? Hey,
Okay.
well.
This is my ranking of the most despicable characters in order. That's number 1. He's worse than Dollarhide.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The reporter.
Absolutely.
Number 2,
he
Jack.
Deserved to die.
Jack
guy.
Crawford is number 2. He's also a piece of shit.
Never.
Nah, he's number 2. And then Dollarhide is 3.
You're gonna put Dollarhide below Dennis Farina?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that guy's an asshole, bro. Oh, you quit, right? Like the guy's like,
the guy's trying to save lives, all right?
No, fuck that guy.
I can get a chopper in here in 2 minutes. Just tell me, give me the word. Yeah,
that's not bad. That's actually not bad at that point.
I like it, man.
Yeah.
He's my favorite in Snatch.
I wanted 5 minutes ago. I wanted it 5 minutes ago.
Dennis Farina's great, yeah.
Yeah, when he has to take the sleeping pill on the plane or some shit to like knock out.
In Snatch, he ends up in England or whatever. He's like, shut the fuck up and sit the fuck down, you big bald fuck.
Yeah.
He shows up.
Wasn't he also in Get Shorty?
Yes.
Yeah, he's also in that movie too. Yeah. He's been around.
You guys got anything else for scenes? I got a couple more.
The final confrontation, of course, the shootout, of course, is.
Can we talk about this scene a bit here?
Yeah, go ahead.
In the Inagata Davida scene where he's
playing the music, and he's towards kind of fucking around with
editing is so interesting in this. He's literally cutting. He's moving because he's cutting stills of the actual frame. Like it seems like. Did you notice?
Yeah, I did.
There's a scene where he grabs the gun and he literally jumps forward like a little bit. And when like the way they edited
it's like freeze framing a little, or
it's almost like, let's say this is a roll of film. He took out the middle part and spliced those two parts together. That made him move from one moment to the next. It seemed like, like that's what in my mind, that's what he did, like, in terms of editing. Like, I don't know, the way he was bouncing around when he grabbed the shotgun, and the way like even like when he gets thrown out of the, like when he jumps through the glass. There's all this weird, like kind of like almost like rewinding kind of like stuff going on where he's just like, and he's cutting the scenes together like kind of haphazardly. Like it seems like they're all like, I don't know. It seems like there's moments missing, like seconds missing in between the scenes that we're watching. It's very interesting the way it all plays out in that moment. What do you think, Jay?
Maybe it's just they didn't make as many scenes as for that whole thing, and you know they
ran out of money because the budget, right?
Oh no, well you can't, dude. You got to switch camera views, right? Also as well too, right? And camera views aren't just like probably as easy to switch and change from here. Maybe
no, that's not why. It was purposeful, man. He's literally, of course, he's just messing around. It seems like.
But that's what I liked about like like people who kind of took risks more. And I'm curious what the expectation for this movie was, like as far as like the budget.
Save turtles.
Yeah. Save the turtles. Save the spotted owl, right? I don't know. I was curious, like, what the expectation. Did they think this was going to be like a big hit or whatever? Because usually when a movie's like that, they don't let you play or they don't let you like experiment as much. But then if it's like a movie that has like middling expectations, then it's like, yeah, go for it kind of thing.
I mean, Michael Mann was always like
he's
experimental for sure, right? But I think like you're right. Like you get to a certain point of the film, this is right at the end. This is the moment we've all been waiting for, and this is where he chooses to do some weird editing choices. Yeah, it's very strange. Like it just, don't get me wrong, that scene is awesome with the music, the way he busts through the wall, the way he takes out the shotgun, and Will Graham jumping through the window is insane. I don't know what the hell this guy's doing jumping through. He's just like, that's the best way to like stop this guy. He's like,
stop it, get your hands off her, right? And he's just like,
it's so bizarre, man. I love that whole last scene though.
That's great. It's great. And then I think we kind of already talked about this, but I think my personal favorite like number one scene of the movie is when he figures it out and the music starts to kick in. He's watching the two TV side by side, and he's like rewinding them. He's like, okay, and he's like figuring it out.
Between that and the supermarket, that's like kind of.
He has that like eureka moment, like you've seen these films, right? And then that's my favorite scene. And then another great scene that I have to mention is the final scene, the final shot of the
Yes,
film,
please.
when they're at the beach and then you see the sun like
In
throwing.
classic 80s
It's
fashion.
so good.
There's
It's
so many
good.
movies that end on a beach. The credits start to roll, and then you get a freeze frame of the family. Like,
Yeah.
bro.
Silhouette, yeah.
And then the music, heartbeat, heartbeat. And you see the kid like,
Yeah. He's like throwing a rock or something into the ocean, and it's like the perfect family.
I don't know if you guys remember this. In the movie Commando, he's literally walking
Yeah,
down
yeah,
the beach at the end. Arnold.
Commando, they did that in the beginning too, when
Yeah.
they're getting ice cream. And he's
No,
just
but
like,
that's an 80s
That's
fucking
such an
trope.
80s
Like we're
thing.
gonna play the music, we're gonna let the credits roll, we're gonna freeze frame.
Stand by Me.
Yeah.
No, not Stand by Me.
Like, that's a classic.
The Breakfast Club. The Breakfast
Every
Club.
episode of Miami Vice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See,
Every
but this
episode
is
of
what,
Miami Vice, CSI Miami, all that shit. They all
Right.
do that kind of fucking thing.
this is the thing though. In what version of this fucking movie does that happen?
Never.
Honestly, this is
Ever.
what makes this movie stand apart from all the other
Yeah.
movies that are like this.
The other ones are
Honestly,
dark. Yeah, completely dark.
I mean, this is not
That's what I
dark
like
though,
about it.
but
That's-
but it's mixed
It
in with
has
this.
both.
Yeah, it has this 80s aesthetic between the music and like the tropes of the 80s and
I
stuff
mean,
like that. It's
I don't think
funny.
they did it so much in Silence of the Lambs, but they definitely did this in Seven and in True Detective, where it's like the ending is like, don't even try, like you're fucked, kind of like ending, kind of like, life is bullshit or whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Life is like, you know what I mean? Don't even try to hope for anything. I like that this has like a lighthearted note to it, and I think it also kind of runs with the overall kind of theme of the movie, where it's like they try to parallel Will Graham, the insane Will Graham, against the insane Hannibal Lecter or the insane Dollarhide. But the difference is Will Graham is not like a doomed character. Like
Right.
he has something to go back to, a family and stuff, and he actually can, like, even though he's playing with fire anytime he goes into that mentality, he still has it somewhat under control, and he can kind of rein it back a
Jay
bit.
can speak to this because he's also seen it. You know what does a good job of doing that? The show. The show
Hannibal, the show. Yeah.
The show has so much more time to explore the Will Graham character because it's like more screen time because it's a show, right? And that was cable, so it had like lots of episodes on that one. Right.
He's been to dinner at Hannibal's house.
Right.
Think about how fucked up he really is in his head.
But you remember, Jay, the show, there was a part of the show where he thought he was the kid. Like there was moments where you thought Will was the killer.
Wow, interesting.
Because they kind of, because he went so far in his line of thinking that you're like, this guy is a little unhinged. Like he could be the killer in all of this, like honestly. And maybe we're just seeing it through some sort of warped, like, you know what I mean? Like view of like, oh yeah, we don't like, what do you call it? When the narrator isn't trustful, like,
unreliable narrator.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like the show.
The
show did a really good job of examining it this way. The movie obviously didn't have enough time to kind of delve deeper into that, but you do get the feeling that this guy's unhinged. In
Right.
this movie,
No, definitely.
Right? Yeah.
But I do love the battle has been won. It's over. And there's the sun, so the sun, like the light comes in, and I like that ending.
There's a
like,
whole deleted scene. I don't know which version of the film you watch, but there's
Manhunter. When he goes to the family that they're
Yes.
Did you have that version?
Yes.
Did you watch that version?
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't see that in my version of
that. Is a deleted scene apparently. Yeah. So there's a scene where he at the end of the movie goes and visits the woman that was that he had just saved prior to this.
It was the next family
victim.
that he was casing the whole time.
So he had to go see like if she was okay. He's like, "Hi, I'm Will Graham. Like, I just wanted to see that you're okay." And then he left.
Yeah.
But it's very weird. And then right after that scene, that's when you get the beach scene, right?
Yeah.
It's heartbeat. But he's so like troubled that you could tell he needed that. He needed to see that she was okay at the end. And you want to know what the ending?
Got himself shot, man. Yeah.
And you want to know what the ending of Red Dragon by Brett Ratner was?
Okay.
It's different.
Let's see.
It's different. I don't know if this is in the book. Okay. It's different. It's one of the only different things about the film, actually. There's a couple of different standout things about Brett Ratner's version in this one. But in Brett Ratner's version, in the final showdown, you think that Dollarhide shoots himself and kills himself, and the blind woman believes that he's dead. The house goes on in flames, and they come to save her when they find out that it was him, but he's dead. There's a body in there, And for all you think Dollarhide shot himself in the head, but she was blind, so he shot something and made it seem like he shot himself. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So he runs away. He then goes to Will Graham's house and tries to kill his family.
Oh shit!
At the end of the other version,
Interesting.
yes. So the other version, they kind of tried to give you that happy moment at the end with Edward Norton and his family. But then, what's his name? Jack gets on the phone and warns him. He's like, "It wasn't him. The body, it didn't come back as him. Like, he's out there still." And then he ends up going to his house and trying to kill him. His wife has to shoot him. Will Graham's wife ends up
kills the Tooth Fairy.
They get into a shootout. They both shoot each other. He's on the ground hurt, and she has to give the final shot and kill him. In Brett Ratner's
she has to kill him.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, I gotta see that.
Because earlier in the movie, he actually is training her because he's afraid that he's gonna, now that he's found out his address, that she has to protect herself. Exactly.
That's what I kind of was curious about. The end of this movie is like, do they have to like move now because Hannibal Lecter knows where they live and he's probably gonna leak that to somebody, and it's not like, yeah, I wouldn't trust that. So interesting. Now I kind of want to see that, like, or at least read the book, if anything, for that too. I'm curious, in Red Dragon, do they show the scene where he's like doing the turtle fence thing, or is that in that movie?
He's on a beach at the start. I don't remember anything about turtles though.
Because I feel like that scene is like really like in a very like on the nose kind of way. It was showing like this, like Will Graham is like a preserver of life kind of character. Like he's doing this to save lives and stuff, and he's like building this fence so that these turtle eggs, like everyone's gonna live and stuff. And you kind of get that that sense.
I don't remember that.
Teaches kid good morals.
Yeah, for real. Like in Mata Staples, buddy, right?
The other big difference that I recall in this version was Ray Fiennes on his back. You know how when he steals a reporter, who's actually played by Philip Seymour Hoffman in this version.
Oh wow, nice.
He's great in it.
Nice.
Like, it's actually a waste of Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh
honestly,
man,
to be honest with you, because he's a reporter. He's not in it very long.
But
But he gets kidnapped by him, as he does in this film, in Brett Ratner's version, and on his back, he's got a dragon tattoo that covers his entire back, which they were gonna do for this version. Like,
didn't he have it on his chest?
But apparently, like, there's a whole scene where he shows off his back and makes it look like he's a dragon.
Oh,
and that happens in the Brett Ratner version. I actually like that scene a lot.
Okay,
that's missing in this version.
Okay.
That's actually one of the scenes that actually worked for me. And Philip Seymour Hoffman is forced to watch him after he does the can you see, he like stands and and it's like he forms a dragon with his tattoo. He like flexes. And he's like, do you see what I am? And he's like a dragon.
To the reporter.
Yes.
Okay. In this version, he shows the reporter the painting.
Right.
The reference.
So instead of that,
he shows it on his body. Okay. Interesting.
And there's an actual scene where he tracks down. I know I'm spoiling this for you.
Go ahead.
He tracks down the painting, the Red Dragon painting, and he consumes it. He eats the painting.
The real version of the painting?
Because he wants it to be part of him.
What the fuck?
He wants to be one with the painting.
That's interesting.
And he wants the power of the Red Dragon.
Yeah. Look at the reference is that painting by I think William Blake or whatever, the Red Dragon and this painted lady or whatever the thing is called, or the lady in the sun or whatever. And I think they were trying to, it's like the Red Dragon, which is like the Satan basically from the book of Revelations, like the in the Bible or whatever. And there's this painting with this Satan character, and then there's like the woman, the blonde-haired woman. And I almost feel like this was like recreated. I don't know if they did in Red Dragon, but it's recreated when after he sleeps with the blind girl and she's out in the sun on the dock. And she's like a blonde-haired and she's out in the sun and stuff. And then he comes racing to her like, oh, where'd you go? Whatever. And it's like they're shot by shot next to each other, and it's the Red Dragon and
I didn't think of that.
And the lady or whatever. That was like a kind of like like Michael Mann was like framing the actual painting, but like in a real life context or whatever. You know, what's another scene I really love when
that's not what the actual picture looks like. The Red Dragon actual photo looks like.
Yeah. Did you see what it looks like? You've seen it?
Different.
Yeah, it's
the great Red Dragon and the woman.
Yeah. There's actually another painting that's just the Red Dragon. That's very famous. That just the Satan.
I'll try to put it up in the video here for us, so you guys can take a look.
I can share it with you right now.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, JT, do you see? Do you see what the dragon looks like?
You see the
But
red dragon.
a scene I really like, and this kind of like goes into the relationship between. I keep forgetting the character. Yeah, that's that's the red dragon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's one with her and the woman, right? Oh, is that the one? Was
Yeah.
that the one?
Yeah.
That was the one. Okay. I really like the scene when he shows her the tiger. That's another scene when he's like they're feeling on the tiger.
It seems weird. He's like getting off to her, like getting it, like touching the tiger.
I know they're kind of like
he's like in the corner,
you know?
like it's literally what's
Oh
going
my
on in that
God.
scene.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, this whole movie I love from front to end. Like the whole, my favorite scene is the whole movie.
Also, speaking of the rewatchables, I know we always give them a shout out, but
Yeah.
I remember when they did this movie.
Yeah.
They talked about like they're like, what's wrong with Michael Mann and his first dates with the characters in it?
You know what though? I'll say this. No.
I'm reading this book about metals, and I come stroking this tiger.
Bro, I will say though, like, you know, it's funny to laugh at. I love how he depicts romance in his movies. I love it. Like, I just like it's so like.
I don't know. I'm kind of in the opinion. It's like, have you ever like?
No, but it's a
had
movie.
a first date.
No, but it's a movie. It's supposed to be like stylized and shit. Like that scene when
even in Thief, like.
Oh, I love it in Thief when he's like confessing to her and he's like, "Yo, like I'm out of time."
Start this big romance.
It's like let's skip all the mini moves and all the bullshit and get it started with this great romance already or whatever. But that scene when he takes her to that coffee shop and they're having that conversation, and that's a great scene in Thief.
Oh, the best scene.
And
yeah.
Oh, I love it. And in Heat, when she finds out that this guy's a fucking thief and a criminal, and they drive out to that, like, I don't know where they are. They're in some like area, like some waste, like land, whatever, some like field. And he tells her, like, he's like, "Yo, if you're not with me, I won't leave."
Right.
And I love that scene. And then she kind of like embraces, and then he ends up ditching her.
I do laugh at the whole thing in the book about metals.
The book about metals.
Lady,
yeah.
How come you care about what I read and what I
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I love it. It's
Pacino has like no. It's right. De Niro has like no charisma.
You know what? You're onto something because it's always
Bro,
weird
you know,
when I see De Niro kiss someone in a movie. It doesn't look natural.
He's
like,
not a ladies' man.
you know why? Because all the girls he's kissing are white, like, which is not his preference. He's like, can we get like?
You're so bad, dude.
No one wants.
It's true though. It's true. He's like, can we get? Could we have gotten Kerry Washington instead? Then maybe I would have been into it more or whatever. Like Jada Pinkett. I don't know who he's into, whatever. But
he might have one on stage.
But
all those Red Dragon photos, there's like 4 of them. All of them.
There's more than one. There's more than one.
All of them come from Revelations.
I will say this because you just mentioned the rewatchables, guys. Going into this whole like idea of the show, I was so like on a high horse of like, I'll never pick a movie they've already done.
Oh, come on now.
I'm not doing what they've done. And Manhunter is like they've done it already, but it's like whatever. We can all enjoy.
I think we've been pretty good with our picks.
No, I'm not like complaining or anything, but that was sort of like my like, oh, I'm never gonna do that shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I did Steve Jobs. Maybe they will. I can see them one day doing Steve Jobs. Honestly, I can see it. Like, just because they picked. I mean, they did the Gambler with Mark Wahlberg, for crying out loud. Like, anything is possible with those guys, you know? Like, and I love them. They're great.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Let's move on to quotes though here, since we want what you could for quotes.
You go first.
Okay.
I have one that's like my absolute favorite.
This might be yours then. I'm not sure. This is my favorite quote of the whole film, where he goes to visit him in his cell, and he's like,
okay, no.
I know that I'm not smarter than you. Then how did you catch me? You had disadvantages. What disadvantages? You're insane.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah, it's like it was like a little like a mental like game of chess they were having, like,
and it's true when he says that, he's just like, fair enough, you know. He's like, yeah, I am insane. Like,
yeah.
This is where JT looks up IMDb quotes. All right, this is.
And then I have Jay, I have it too because I didn't write it down. I have them on. I am on IMDb as well.
No, I have them on. I do the same thing with the quotes. It's fucking hard.
Yeah. I get it. You're not gonna write them down while you're trying to enjoy the movie, right? So,
well, I still do a lot of writing. I just
no shots fired or whatever.
I type it out.
Yeah. This guy is like actually professional, like for real.
Bro, I know
he does. I've seen it.
Meanwhile, I didn't write a single.
listen, Jay, you're not in the room with me. I like to bust your chops from afar too.
No, it's okay. I'm just looking. You know what? I got caught in the fucking 4 pictures of the red dragon thing. And that's
they're
why
good
my mind got
paintings.
lost.
No,
Yeah,
they're
they're
good
fucking
paintings.
beautiful, bro.
No, like as
They're
far
all
as
from the
pictures
Book
of
of
staining
Revelation.
goes, like
I think we have to be worried about Jay now. When he's looking at Red Dragon picture.
Bro, my
God.
fucking my Google search is gonna go nuts, bro. Oh my
Because
god.
everything is touching with
Book
you,
of
isn't it?
Revelations. I'm gonna get a Book of Revelations shit.
But in that same scene, like just because you brought that scene when he says, like we said it already, but like when he says, you want the scent, smell yourself or whatever, right?
Yeah,
That's a great
love it.
That's a great line. This is my favorite piece of dialogue in the whole movie, and this kind of goes into like, yeah, we're not supposed to like relate to the killer or whatever. We're not supposed to empathize with him, but this whole like back and forth that Will has with Jack Graham, where he says, this started from an abused kid, a battered infant. There's something terrible about him. And then Jack Crawford goes, what are you sympathizing with this guy? And then Will Graham goes, absolutely. My heart bleeds for him as a child. Someone took a kid and manufactured a monster. At the same time, as an adult, he's irredeemable. He butchers whole families to pursue trivial fantasies. And as an adult, someone should blow the sick fuck out of his socks. And then Will Graham looks at him and he's like, do you think that's a contradiction, Jack? Does this kind of understanding make you uncomfortable? I just love that, the writing on that. And it's so true because, yeah, like all these people, all these serial killers, they're this way because someone like did something probably horrendous to them as when they were kids, right?
Not
Like
necessarily, bro. It's
not
always...
necessarily, but I mean, there's like a pattern of it, right? Like a lot of your adult traumas that you deal with are like there's a high percentage that it stemmed from something in your childhood or whatever, right? And like, yeah, it's like something probably happened to this guy. Something probably happened to Buffalo Bill. That's the reason why he's the way he is and stuff.
It's always
and
says nurture over nature, bro, or whatever, nature over nurture, whatever you think it is, which way you think it is.
But it's just like the way for a movie to kind of deal with something very like heavy and complex that way and kind of admit to the hypocrisy, admit to the contradiction of the thinking. I thought it was just really,
that's
really
why,
interesting.
That's why Jonathan Demme, who directed Silence of the Lambs, regrets the way that he portrayed the Buffalo Bill character in it, because there was a whole outcry from
the
people.
Transgender
exactly thing, they made them look bad, that they're all serial killers and that there was an outcry from the community,
and he regrets that in the future.
He wished he's dealt with it a little bit. I had heard that he had stated that he wished he dealt with it maybe a little bit more delicately than the way that they portrayed him in that movie, because it makes you, people took it that, you know, as an excuse to say all people like that can become these serial killers, right? Like, essentially. So again, just to kind of touch on,
but
what you just mentioned.
Me, that's more like outrage culture of today, where it's like
but I think this happened back then, which that wasn't even that big of a represented community at that time.
Even then,
you gotta understand that wasn't as big of a community back then, right? So this was
that's
right?
true.
That's
true.
That's why it was taken that way.
I think this is sort of like, I don't really like that critique, because it's like, what, you can't just see the nuance. Like, this is not, he's not.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that's
I'm not, but I'm saying in against that critique about it, like, you can't see the nuance in the story, that obviously he's not saying this about everyone. It's just, this is a particular individual who's fucked up, and he just so happens to be
right,
etc. etc. Like, I remember, this is so like unrelated, but I remember when The Irishman, people were so mad at Scorsese because of the way Anna Paquin had like 4 lines of dialogue in the movie, and they're like, oh, you're not giving women the opportunity to express their opinions or whatever. And it's like, the point of that character was that she was absent. She's absent she chose not to be in her father's life. Like, she's the silent character in the background who, like, the silence is her power, like, you know, like, that she stepped away from him. And I'm like, do you guys not realize, like, that's the part of the story? Like, why are you And they did the same shit with the Tarantino, with the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like, oh, Margot Robbie's in this movie, like, they were like trying to come at him for like not putting her in more scenes, and I'm just like, like, do you guys not see the like actually look at the movie, the context matters, like, I think that's where I kind of push back on stuff, like when I hear stuff like that. So I mean, they could have even easily said the same thing about Dollarhide, because wasn't there like insinuating that he's gay? That's the reason why he does this shit.
I think they were putting that out there because they were trying to trigger a response from him in the paper. Right? That's why. but it is because of the fact that people relate that to these type of individuals.
Yeah.
See, this is again,
Yeah.
it is going against the societal kind of views of these type of characters,
it's
like you just stated.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
This is why. Are we reinforcing this theory, or are they kind of
right?
pushing
Okay,
back
I
on
see.
it?
I see. Yeah, it's like it's our own thinking that's kind of like flawed a bit when it
Like
comes
Jay
to stuff.
said, that's not always the case.
Yeah.
That's not every case is like that, right?
Yeah,
that
yeah.
this is where it
No,
stems
fair
from,
enough.
right?
Fair enough. Yeah.
There's a lot of unique angles you can take. How about you, Jay? Quotes.
And if one does what God does enough times, one will become as God is.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very good quote.
That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah.
But see, that's what comes from an intellectual that's trying to fucking get in your head. Something like that is somebody that's still trying to manipulate and get into your head, right? That's what type of quote that feels like to me.
What about when he's having the coffee? Well, he's ordering coffee at that airport, the rain scene, and he looks out into the window and it's raining. And he's like, "It's just you and me, sport. I'm gonna find you, god damn it."
Yeah. I enjoy. You took off your gloves to touch her, didn't you? Didn't you, you dirty son of a bitch? That's what I got.
Because everything is seeing with you, right?
I'm coming for you, my man.
Yeah.
Just
He
me.
really is the Manhunter. He was
Yeah.
hunting this man. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
I also like when
the hunt is on.
when Hannibal Lecter, where he's like, "Oh yeah, you read my paper?" Or he's, "Oh yeah," he's like, "Oh yeah, I read your paper." He's like, "Yeah, it's good. A layman could even understand." Layman, a layman. I like how he says that. He's like all offended by the fact that he's calling himself a layman because again he can't. His ego is so much that he can't admit that he got caught by this guy. He needs to also be a mastermind in order to have caught the great Hannibal Lecter, right? That it kind of eats at him, that whole thing. That's why when he says you're exactly like me and all this other stuff, he's like, "How did you catch me then?" Right? About that whole thing about being insane. You know, and I also liked in the letter when the Tooth Fairy says, "If I hear from you next time, I might send you something wet."
Yeah. Oh my god, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
Man,
I like the one the Tooth Fairy's gonna go on until we get smarter, we get lucky. He won't stop. Like when he tells Jack Crawford, it's just like this is like, yeah, he either has to figure out a plan or this is just gonna keep going on and on until you
guys said it earlier too. Hey, you want the scent? Smell yourself.
Yeah, that's a great
that
one.
was one of my
That's
favorite.
a great one.
That's classic, bro.
Also, when the reporter says like, "How's your sex life?" He's like, "Mine is fine. Go fuck yourself," or something. There, yours.
That guy was such a dick, bro. I hate that guy, bro.
What is he? Yeah, I don't know if that's the exact.
How is yours? Go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
You know what? Even that other police officer, the one with the glasses, the captain or whatever, I don't know who he was, but he was even saying
the
like
task force guy. Yeah,
the task force guy. He was even saying like, "Oh, I heard Lecter cut you up pretty good or whatever," and that kind of triggered Will. You could see like in his face, like, William Peterson knocked it out of the bag with this performance. He knocked it out of the park with this.
Yeah, he was good
performance. I thought he was just like really good.
And then finally, I just have time is luck. Learn to value every single day. That's that's
they all survive. Oh
yeah.
Have you ever seen the blood in the moonlight?
I think I'm tapped on quotes.
What's that, Jay?
Have you ever seen the blood in the moonlight?
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
It appears quite black.
Appears quite black.
Yeah. That was a good one. Did you guys ever think? I always like.
There was one where he made. What was the thing about the fucking? Oh, we gave him a suggestion about this, and he decided. What the fuck was it, man? He decided to make the dip for the chips for fucking.
Oh, because they were like pouring some like chemical on him, or was it like a torture or what?
Yeah, it was a torture. And
he found out it was a recipe for
potato chips.
No,
he made a recipe
after.
Yeah. No, but he made a recipe for it. And Hannibal had made a recipe for that after they tried to torture him that way.
Yeah,
like that's fucked. Sorry, I just can't remember how that quote went.
Mm-hmm. What else? You got it.
Okay. I just found one on IMDb. I don't know if this is cheating, but when Reba's like, "What are you watching?" and then Dollar Hyde's like, "Just a little homework."
Yeah.
It's fucking weird.
Yeah.
When are you gonna kill him? If not, it's only my job to find him. I don't know. This is good script. Yeah, I'm just kind of like, Tapped, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
They're all great.
So
Great.
moving on. What we
Moving
got
on.
next?
I always mess up on this this category, unique questions. Do you like?
Oh yeah, I
Do
got
you
a
have
couple.
any? Yeah,
I got a couple.
I never can think of any.
Do you guys think if Dollarhide actually worked things out with that woman, he would stop killing people? If he actually like
Nah,
didn't?
thought
Yeah.
about
I
that.
think he's
I
too
thought
far
about that.
gone. I think
I
he's
thought
too
about
far
that.
gone.
Now I know this is not completely is a fictional character, right? But there is characters out there loosely based around where Hannibal Lecter is like loosely based around that sense, right? There is people that this is not so far fetched as we think it is.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think he could have found happiness. Honestly, I really do. Like,
I would hope, but
but
I don't think
oh
so.
yeah,
I think if it took that her getting dropped off by some guy for him to go off the edge, then it would have been something else.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
You know what I mean?
It was
Like,
only a matter
it
of
was
never
only
been a
matter of time.
fucking.
The thing is,
If
he
that was
died.
his first time he had sex, like legitly with somebody, that might fucking trigger him to think like that all of a sudden, dude. Even worse.
The thing is, like, he
What's that?
died. He died when he was a kid. Whenever that trauma that happened to him happened, that turned him into this character. That's when he died. This is just like
right.
he's the red dragon
That's
now.
a
He's the
good
tooth
point.
fairy. You know,
That's a good point.
he's
Yeah.
just pretending to be human or whatever. You know?
Right.
So
That was my only question. If you guys have anything,
I didn't think of any, to be honest with you, for
Okay.
this unique questions. I guess one thing was like, do you think they moved at the end? Like they moved houses, like because the other address is.
Oh no, fuck that!
This
I would have
thing-
stayed in that house. Are you
I mean,
crazy?
you could get another beach property somewhere else. You know.
Yeah.
Happy.
I don't know.
Happy.
No, they were very happy at the end of that movie.
That's true.
I have a hot take though.
Go ahead.
I mean, I already said it earlier. I said like this is not. I don't think this is as good as Silence of the Lambs. I do like
That's
Silence
fair
of the
enough.
Lambs better, although it is two very different films. I like them both for different reasons. But it is absolutely better than the remake of Red Dragon by
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Brett Ratner, despite the star-studded cast. I also wrote here Brian Cox's Hannibal Lecter rivals Anthony Hopkins. Despite me enjoying Anthony Hopkins more, and given the chance to have one or two more scenes in this movie, I think the conversation may have been a little different. Less time than Hopkins. Like I mentioned, he was only on 18 minutes on screen. He was like on 10 minutes of screen time in this one. I honestly think if we got maybe one or two more really juicy Hannibal moments in this movie, I think honestly you could have a better I don't agree with this whole argument that he's better than Anthony Hopkins version of this character, but I will say he is a very interesting version of this same character
because he's a brilliant actor
and
in
he's
his
playing
own
it differently, which I appreciate. I do like that
Great
he played the
actors.
same character but played it differently.
Absolutely.
So
But I will go on that note and say that I actually like the Hannibal character that they played in the TV series.
Mads
I
Mikkelsen's great.
He's also a great
I-
actor.
Never pronounce
they
his
had-
name.
No, you've never seen a bad Hannibal Lecter. Like they've
Hannibal.
all
No,
like, those three are great actors.
You're right.
Oh, actually, no. Hannibal Rising. I can't speak for that because I haven't seen it. There wasn't that a younger actor who played Hannibal Lecter in Hannibal Rising. That wasn't
Yeah,
Anthony
yeah.
Hopkins, right? Because that's like the college years or whatever. That's like when he's young, right?
I can tell you right now. Hold on.
I don't remember.
I think it was like a Latino guy. I think that played him in.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, I can't speak for that
Oh,
performance.
I like the way you said that.
That
Rigo.
guy.
Well, I just looked at the picture. Yeah, you know what?
Oh, I know. I can't. say his name.
I remember as a
Gaspard Ulliott.
I remember as a kid, me and my friends, we went to the theaters. I was like 12 years old or something. And we walk out of the theater and there's a poster for Hannibal Rising or whatever. And it was coming out in theaters. Like it was like an upcoming attraction. That was the first image of any Hannibal thing I've ever seen because I didn't know what Silence of the Lambs was at that age or whatever. So it's so funny. Like the first piece of like Hannibal media I've ever seen was what's his name? Gaspar Ulliott.
Yeah,
Ulliott?
I don't know. How to
I think he's South American or
You know what? I'm
Argentinian.
gonna go out on a limb and say he was the worst one.
He was the worst one.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's.
yeah,
I mean, I haven't even seen Mads Mikkelsen.
I don't recall this movie, even though I have seen it. I really have like no
He
recollection
said
of
the
it.
mask on a lot.
Yeah, I don't like this version that much. No.
There's this funny meme. I'm gonna send it to you guys. Maybe if you guys want, we could put it as the thumbnail for this video, where it's two cars, right? And it's like one car has the poster of Silence of the Lambs on it, and the other one has a poster for Manhunter. And the guy's point, it's like I think it's from that show Top Gear, that British car show. and he's pointing at Silence of the Lambs. He's like, "This is great," and then but he looks at Manhunter. He's like, "But I like this,"
Right.
like right, and I think that kind of just sums up my sentiment about the whole thing, where it's like you can't say anything about Silence of the
No.
Lambs. It's a masterpiece, but I like what he
Sure.
did with that. Like I like it more personally. It speaks to
It also
what I look
speaks
for in a
to, like
movie.
you said, the film art student kind of like
Exactly.
this is more of a work of art than that film is.
Yeah,
as
and that
opposed-
pop art from like the 80s and stuff, and like
it's
that Art
different.
Deco style.
I don't think the end result of either of these films is the same, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like,
which is a good thing.
I think
It's a
they're
good
both
thing.
going for two different things.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember when I took an Italian cinema course at university.
Oh, listen to this fucking
and
guy.
I know.
Yeah.
Watch out, bro. I don't even know how to
Yeah.
speak Italian, dude. And I'm
No,
baffled.
it wasn't. They weren't. Nobody spoke Italian. Well, there were some Italian kids in there in the school, and I think the professor and the TA, the assisting professor, was Italian, or the assisting professor might have been Greek, but he could speak Italian. They're very smart guys. And we were talking about this. They were talking about intention in a movie, and they were showing this video. It's like, okay, if you have a line, let's say this is a line of for example, a woman goes to the store to buy shoes, okay, and make a movie just about that subject matter. And they're showing this one video, and it's like the way it was edited, it had like fast cuts, and it was almost like an action movie kind of, the way this filmmaker tried to do this little short like segment or whatever. And it's like, yeah, you literally have that sentence of a woman goes to the store to buy shoes, and you could do it like 50 different ways. You could tell that you give it to 50 different filmmakers, you're getting 50 different products, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that was like
actually good.
Like that's the thing. It's like one person you give it to will have like jazzy music or whatever, be like a Woody Allen type of movie or whatever, and then you give it to someone and it's like an action. It's like it's all based on editing and shot
Yep.
composition, so stuff like that. So the way Jonathan Demme approached Silence of the Lambs was to make it like a horror experience that like gets the hair on your arm standing. It's so blood. So
Each artist is gonna convey the same thing differently.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so Manhunter is Michael Mann bringing that 80s synth sort of like that energy, that, and just obviously an eye for visualness and an eye for stuff that is just, it's so unique, and he can't be replicated because he's the only one kind of going for that. Like there are other filmmakers I can name that is similar in that sort of vein, and I think David Fincher you could throw in, who has like a very visual eye that is kind of like that. And I would even say Hype Williams, the famous music video director.
I know what you're talking about. I was thinking of Stanley Kubrick.
Stanley Kubrick for sure. Yeah. So guys like that, and like but you know what, I think like people who also use like color, like, you know, when you greens, hues of greens and blues and like all this stuff to actually tell the story. And I just like the approach to direction that Michael Mann does. And it took me like 10 years, maybe, because in that 10-year span, I kind of grew more as of an appreciation for art. I had more of education about like paintings and stuff, and like pop art and like art, like architecture and stuff like that, that Michael Mann is sort of like kind of going for. That I like it. I even remember Tarantino was saying with Michael Mann, he said, I think they were talking about The Keep or whatever. He's like, I only like Michael Mann when he's dealing with the 20th century.
yes.
Do you remember that quote that he said? And because I guess he did Last of the Mohicans, and he did stuff like, you know,
he did 6 years after this movie.
Yeah, with Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah. So I need to revisit that one too, because I've only seen it once. Maybe I'll see that in a new light. But there are some movies that with Mann that like people like I've kind of like people have kind of thrown to the side in a similar manner they did Manhunter. And I feel like deep down it's only a matter of time before people turn around on those movies too, like Black Hat, for instance. I think eventually time will like be kind to that movie. And I'll even say Public Enemies, I think too. I know a lot of people are a little standoffish on that movie, but I think there might be a chance. Like for example, the movie of Ali. That's another one that I turned around on. I was like, okay, wow, this is actually. I've
never seen it.
It's really good. With Will, might have been Will Smith's best performance, honestly.
Right.
And Michael Mann is just like a master filmmaker, so he knows how to make a great movie. But in reference to what that Tarantino statement, like he can only work in the 20th century, the way he films like the buildings and in the night and the vehicles and just like all this stuff, it's poetry. It's like I love it. It's just so gorgeous.
Didn't Michael Mann do Hancock?
No, that's Pete Berg. He might have produced it actually. He might actually
That's
have
all
a
I can-
producer credit on.
I don't know.
No, it might either Michael Mann or Michael Bay. But actually, I think you're right. I think Michael Mann does have a producer credit on Hancock. I think you are right about that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
so.
How
I didn't
did
look
you remember that?
He's looking it up.
because you were talking about Will Smith and you were talking about Muhammad Ali, so I thought about that one because I had seen something about that before, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
you're right. He produced
Yeah,
Hancock.
right.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I'm looking at just Thief and like Live and Die in L.A. right here, and Hannibal, like the other ones, even the ones that he didn't produce.
Collateral is fantastic.
I love
Right.
Collateral.
I love
You're a
Collateral.
fan of Man.
I'm just like
Yeah,
more
true,
like
man.
this. I'm looking at the more
I
like
will, and I guess this is sort of going. If we could, I guess, move on to Legacy.
I would like to wrap up.
Yeah. Let's wrap this
I
up.
wanted to give you a power ranking of
My
like
legacy for this movie is that after revisiting it, in my official Michael Mann rank list, this is now number 2. This sits number 2 behind Heat.
Nice,
Yeah, give
nice.
us a power ranking. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just this
On the
top,
fly.
on the fly.
On the fly.
Heat number 1,
Michael Mann.
Manhunter number 2. I'll say Thief 3, and then I'll say Collateral 4, Miami Vice 5. Yeah, that's my 5.
No, I was talking about power ranking just in the Hannibal character itself.
Miami Vice, the movie, the
And
2006
how
movie.
I'd say now that I've seen this and I've seen the other ones, I would say how I'd rate them, how to watch them at least.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking when I said for myself for a power ranking.
All
Because
right.
I would watch. This would be second. I think the Hannibal show would have to be first, and then the this one would be second.
So
And
you like
then,
this more than Silence of the Lambs?
I would have to put it if in the storyline aspect, in the storyline where I think it fits for me is right before
Nice.
Silence of the Lambs. If you think about it,
Nice, dude. You know what? I
And
knew you would like this movie. When I said, I was
then
like,
you can like say the Clarice show if you want. If you really want to go into the Jodie Foster type character after at one point, you can go off
Yeah.
and veer into that way. And it didn't do that much, but I mean, even Hannibal, it only did 3 seasons, and that's perfect for an intro to like watching a movie like this when you're trying to get that clue of which character Will is playing and how it's coming across, because you're not getting much Lecter in this, right? So I think that's how, if I was to watch it nowadays after I've seen them, that's how I would watch it, right?
And then obviously outside of like the ones that have the name Hannibal Lecter in them, obviously there are like cousins of this story, like the True Detectives and the Sevens, right? Like these are sort of like descendants of this story, like
Anything
this
that
type
has
of
to do with
story.
serial, anything that has to
like
do with
serial killers. I feel like this was sort of like the one that kind of got early on that kind of. They probably started a lot of the cues for that kind of thing, and I still need to see Long Legs. I think that's another one, right? That's like another addition to the canon, if you will, to that serial killer canon. So
I would probably say Heat number 1. I'd like to actually throw Ferrari in here.
Oh, no, I love Ferrari.
Sorry, Heat, Collateral,
Nice.
Manhunter
number 3.
Yeah, I think so.
Nice.
I don't think I like Collateral. I think more, but
Collateral's great.
Ferrari, and then what else does he have? Miami Vice,
which I love. Black Hat.
I haven't seen Black Hat. I've seen Miami Vice now. No, I'm not gonna put Last of the Mohicans there. Yeah, I might have to put.
The Insider.
Oh,
The Insider.
Yes. Okay. Heat number 1, Collateral 2, Manhunter 3, Insider 4, Ferrari 5.
That's a really good list.
Those are my top
I like
5
that list.
Yeah.
But
okay, so Legacy though for the film, did you mention that?
I mean,
it's just Man, right? Like
Michael Mann.
Yeah.
It started this kind of like it's got the
criminal
ball rolling.
the criminal profiling, killer.
Yeah, it got the ball rolling on that kind of genre a bit, and
like 80s cop type stuff.
80s stuff. It's great document of the 80s, and like to me, it's like I had a list that was similar to like, I thought maybe Collateral, Thief. I like those movies more, and it's just crazy that like upon revisiting, I'm like, wow, I really, really love this movie. I'm like kind of low key obsessed with this movie again. Like, so that's the legacy.
How about movies to pair with this one? Did you have anything for this?
I have a few.
Yeah.
So I I'm not gonna go the obvious other like Silence of the Lambs. I'm not gonna go the obvious like other Michael Mann movies. I'm just gonna put those to the side. But I think I would probably lean towards Michael Mann movies if I was to recommend Manhunter to someone. So I said Blade Runner, because that's also another the original Blade Runner, because that's another one of my personal favorites. That's like another like Manhunter story of him trying to hunt these replicants, but it's also got the 80s
That's a good
vibe. It's got
yeah.
that very space, and the soundtrack by Vangelis is very similar to the soundtrack cues.
That's a
in
good pick.
The
I didn't
80s
actually think of that.
Yeah. So that would be number one. This one is kind of out there. This one is really out there, but just hear me out. American Psycho, because of that movie came out in 2000, in the year 2000, but it's taking place in the 80s, and I was thinking more of like just kind of what I'm talking about, like composition and the 80s. I guess this was just more like 80s fashion sense, 80s when you think about like Patrick Bateman's apartment, all the whites and the stuff,
the Phil
and
Collins,
Phil Collins, and like that poster that he has in the
Genesis,
background, and just like the sort of like the 80s sort of like sensibilities mixed with the music, the architecture, the furniture, the staging of that, which is also like very prevalent in that movie. Like it's
also like he's sophisticated, like a Hannibal would be outside of outside of jail.
yeah. He is sort of like but he's kind of like a douchey version of that character, right? And then number 3, and this is also like, this may be even more out there, but this is like another personal favorite movie of mine, and I just name dropped him, Hype Williams' Belly, because that it's trippy, it's dreamy, it's like it's like that movie's like a cannabis induced dream, like the guy's smoking a blunt and blowing out the smoke, and that's how like the movie starts. The how Hype Williams, if you watch that movie, how he uses color to tell the story, how like blue is like cold and then red is like warm and intimate, and it's a very colorful movie, and that's I could see Hype Williams being a fan of Michael Mann and taking like the cues, like taking that as an influence. And I think David Fincher the same thing. I think they're both looking at Michael Mann as an influence. So yeah.
Nice. I got my one that's not so obvious. I put Risky Business because that movie is very dreamlike, and it has like Tangerine Dream like music and stuff like that, and it's also like product of the 80s. So like I think that's a really good example of something that's dreamlike and kind of has like some of that music like throughout and stuff like that, even though the source material isn't similar to this movie in any way, but that's aspect of it I really enjoy. And then the rest of them I kind of had more obvious ones, which if you didn't mention them, so I will. I mean, I went with Thief because it's an 80s Mann movie,
I think so.
Right? I think that's the perfect one to pair with this if you're going to compare another Michael Mann film to this one.
I agree 100%.
Because it also came out of the 80s as
also has like a dreamish quality to it too.
And then obviously there's the obvious 7, Zodiac, even maybe
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, Silence of the Lambs.
Right.
And if you want to go the TV route, I put Hannibal and Mindhunter.
Nice
route for this. Jay?
Yeah, I just went for the Hannibal shows and stuff. The Hannibals and the Silence of the Lambs. I'm not really great with the pairing yet. Like as I said, I haven't really thought too much into how I would pair movies.
Yeah. Think of it as like a double feature. If you were having a double feature at your house and you put on Manhunter, what would you put on right after, kind of thing? Like maybe like something, if you watch something like super like fucked up like 7, you probably like, I don't know, like High Fidelity to like cheer yourself up, kind of thing. Like, I
would go totally different. Yeah, but me, that's the thing with me. I would have to jump like completely around. I mean, after I watched this, I watched something totally different. I mean, it's still a horror movie, but it had nothing to do with
Apple TV series. Right? Why don't you just do that for your parents?
No,
Shrinking.
The only
Ted Lasso.
Now it's pairing for animated films.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's been watching a lot of them. Yeah, I see.
Fuck yourself.
Mulan.
So,
I pair this with Little Mermaid.
With Mulan, yeah.
Fuck
I pair this with From the World of John Wick, Ballerina.
I would just say that with the Hannibal stuff in general, man, that's how I would pair something like this. If I'm gonna sit back and watch horror, I'm gonna sit back and watch a few of them, like I did the other day. Like so. But other than that, no, I
get in the killer headspace.
The mindset, yeah, I can't go too dark in my head, bro. Straight up, this movie, it got me in a certain spot, in certain spots. Like, trust me, there's especially with the serial killer part, there's a lot of things that I don't want to say, but I can somewhat relate to in a sense. So I That's why I got to get out of that mindset every little while. I got to clear my head and freshen my palate. So I'm trying to think of just some sort of even comedy that I would rather watch after something like this, just
Yeah,
to make me feel
exactly,
better, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
so I can't think of right now what I would pair with this. Right now, this one had gotten me so much.
It is a delicate art, you know, the pairings.
No,
You
it's
know,
no,
there's a
it
science that
is.
goes in it.
Sometimes it
It
comes
is.
easier to me than other times.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
different.
yeah,
It's different every
But
time.
no, it is. It's not always the easiest thing. Like sometimes there is movies that you can think of right away with something you can watch after that can kind of like flow right off of it. But for me, I have, like I said, I don't watch as many as many movies like you guys in that sense. Like I've got a lot of catching up. I've watched a lot,
You
but
know,
I'm not.
even though I haven't seen it, maybe To Live and Die in LA, because that's another
I've heard that's
William
a good
Peterson.
pairing.
Like you could do like a double William Peterson thing, you know?
Yeah.
Isn't
So
that a hip hop song? Isn't it a hip
yeah,
hop song?
Tupac.
No?
California Love Part 2 without weak gay ass Dre or whatever Tupac says at the end of. He's like dissing Dr.
Yeah,
Dre at
yeah.
the end of that song.
Yeah, great day.
I love that song. To Live
PJ
and Die in
Morton.
LA.
But yeah, no.
Okay.
Rest in
Pairing,
peace, Tupac.
that's it for me. Yeah.
All right. That's good, man. Anything
Good
else? Anything
episode.
else for your pick here?
No,
You want to
man,
say any final words?
I love this movie. Thank you to Tarantino for like inspiring
Yeah.
the trip that
Name
I went
drop.
on. The
And
name,
thank you for finally picking a man pick. I'm
yeah. Oh yeah, I
surprised.
forgot to mention that part. There's like that element of Nico, like, I can't believe you haven't done Michael Mann yet. And I'm like, so I kind of,
Well, I thought it was your boy.
yeah, no, he is.
I'm like the guy we
There's a lot of boys out there.
joins
Right?
the
I got a lot
show
of
and
boys.
hasn't picked a Michael Mann pick yet. I was surprised, right?
So now the
Yeah.
ball's in your court. Now next time you're doing the
Okay.
next Michael Mann movie, okay?
Yeah,
Even though
alright.
you've done you're the one that
I've
picked
done.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're okay. We're even.
We're a fan of man over here.
We're
Right?
Man fans.
That's what it's gonna say on this video when it comes out. Fan of man.
Fan of Man. We should probably get ahead of those rewatchable guys and do like Ferrari before them. You know, like
I love Ferrari.
yeah, we could
It's
definitely do
great.
that.
The fans of Mans.
But like I'm like kind of like knocking two birds with one stone. It's like a movie that I really actually wanted to do because of that inspiration of watching it and going back and going, whoa, this is awesome.
Sure.
Like it's not often that I see a movie like 10 years later and have like a 180. Not a 180. I did like it,
A
but
new appreciation.
a deeper appreciation too. Like
Yeah.
just like whoa. And so that's definitely why I wanted to do this. Even going back to December, I'm like next time I have a pick, I'm doing this.
Nice.
And so and then also because you requested me to do a Michael Mann movie, so two birds with one stone.
There
I'm
you
happy.
go.
I'm happy about
All
it.
right. Well, if you guys are ready to hear about our next pick here, when Julie
Drum roll.
returns to the
Oh,
show,
wait, let me
Curious
guess. Is
to
it
know.
Seppi makes a movie part 2?
which is still on the shelf. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
with
we
that
gotta
one.
get that.
But that being said, her pick is because in celebration of Sean Baker winning the Best Picture at the Oscars this year, she picked The Florida Project.
Nice.
I don't think any of us have seen it.
I've seen it.
You have.
I've seen it. I mentioned it on. I
haven't.
think I mentioned it on the show one time when we were doing I think it was like the Steve Jobs episode when I was talking about movies that we've seen lately, and I recently just had watched Florida Project.
Because I know
like,
you hadn't seen it for a while. I remember you saying
I'd only saw it like 4 months ago.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, this is one of the best movies I've seen in years. That's like, it's so funny. My sister, I was talking to my sister, and she was friends with some person on Facebook who said that, oh, I'm so happy Honora won like Best Picture, and like I love Sean Baker. But even then, Honora is like number 4 on my Sean Baker
That's
list.
exactly why she picked it, because she heard that this is the film that he should have won an award for.
It's
over
really
Honora.
good.
Right.
It's really good.
So
and they did get nominated for Oscars, like Willem Dafoe and stuff like that. So
I have yet to see this. She has yet to see this. She's actually picking something that she's never seen.
Nice, good
and I believe
job, Julie.
Jay, you haven't seen it, right?
Taking a risk. It's a great film. I'm a huge fan of it.
It's on my list. It's just I haven't seen
Same.
it. You had brought it up to me too, Max.
So
yeah, so there you go.
Thanks, Julie, because now I have an excuse to revisit it because I really like that one. Yeah,
that'll be our next pick on Late Night at the Movies, everybody, for the next episode. And that all being said, make sure to like and subscribe to the network. Check out our playlists of all of our different types of content, and also check out our new show opposite of this, Late Night Letterbox, where we kind of discuss movie news, what we've been watching lately, and all that kind of good stuff. The stuff that we kind of threw in as an extra segment at the end of this show is its own show now, so make sure to check that out as well in the feed. All right, everyone. Thank you, Max. Great pick.
Thank you, Nick. Thank
All
you.
right. We'll
Time-
see you guys next time.
Is it time for some heartbeat?
That's right.
Let's go, bro.
Let's
End
do it.
credits.
All right, guys. End credits. Yeah. We all have
We
a
all got a
frame.
frame.
All
We all
right,
got a
right,
freeze
right,
frame.
here. Okay, let's do this. Hold on. Hold on. I'm gonna change
Because
up.
the opening, we're all floating. Now this is the freezing.
Yeah. I'm gonna change up the view for this too. Ready? Hold on. You gotta do one
I
of
was
these.
racing you guys like
Yeah.
that's how I was doing in the beginning.
Okay,
Oh,
here
man.
we go.
I get in the door.